Call to order the Architectural Board of Review agenda for October 8th, 2018. Let's see. Are there any staff comments? Any applicant presentations? Yes, please.
Here we go. Vice Chair Moore.
Here?
Board Member Cunningham.
Here.
Board Member Six.
Here.
Board Member Watkins.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Are there any staff comments or any information? No?
I have an announcement to make,
Okay.
but are we?
Well, we can wait until, is it project related or is it?
No.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead?
I can.
Okay.
Can I just clarify, Mr. Chairman, that I'll be stepping down after item 3? I notified staff about that earlier today.
So after item 3, you
Yeah.
are no longer here?
I will no longer be here. Make sure there'll be quorum after that.
Okay, so that is going to put a crimp in our agenda. Is any other board members going to be present? We don't have.
I did not receive responses back from the quorum count I sent out, so if this will be all of the members that we won't have quorum for a few items, since several members will need to recuse themselves.
Yes. Okay, so why don't we just go through that right now. Mr. Cunningham, you are stepping down from item 1. Okay, so we will, if Howard does not appear, we will not have quorum. I'm stepping down from item 4, so same issue. David, you will be?
Leaving after item 3.
You're leaving after item 2?
3.
3.
Yeah, I don't have any conflict with any of the projects proposed, but I just have to leave at that time.
Okay. Well, we will hope that Mr. Witosh arrives. And in the meantime, we should push ahead. And open it up for public comment. If anyone has anything they'd like to speak or address that is not on the agenda for today, you can provide speaker slips. We have a whole stack here.
Yeah.
Looks like everyone is donating their time to Anna Marie Gott. We have 1, 2, 3.
I have one.
So we have three total donating their time to you. Is that correct?
Should be a whole.
Oh. And this is general public comment. Public comment. We'll donate to Anna Marie Gott, Christine Newshauser, and Jose Arturo Gallegos. Okay, so there looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 specifically have donated time.
That is why they're all stuck together, because they also donated time, if you want to confirm that.
Okay.
With the.
Is Mr. Victor Reyes present? You'd like to donate your time?
Yes.
Okay. And Pat Huckabee, you as well? Okay. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 14 minutes.
I probably won't need all of that, but
Okay.
you know me, I can talk. So,
Oops, we need to turn on those microphones, I think.
Push the button on your microphone.
There you go.
okay. The first thing I want to do is thank you guys, because you are actually standing up for yourselves and you are really getting to know the ABR guidelines and understand how to apply them with some of the projects. So I think you guys are doing a really good job, and it's just unbelievably appreciated by the residents. Have you ever heard of the adage, measure twice and cut once? You do this to make sure that you don't make costly mistakes. This philosophy needs to be applied to what you do here, and I'm here today because while staff did do some training with you in September, they neglected to give you some information. Since I like real-world examples, we're going to look at 711 North Milpas. How many times has staff told you that compatibility findings were made on February 1st, 2016?
I want to remind you, this is for, I guess technically it's not on the agenda for today.
That's right.
So okay. Okay.
Okay. Since I like real-world examples, let's focus on 711 North Milpas. How many times has staff told you that compatibility findings were made on February 1st, 2016? How many times has staff told you that you made the substantial conformance determination on May 21st, 2018? Would you like a do-over? So you don't erect a white elephant on Milpas? I have an out for you. I've been counting noses, and I think the board now understands what substantial conformance is, how to make that determination, and I believe that you would be able to deny this project for not being able to meet substantial determination at final approval. It's changed a lot since its first project design approval. So I'm here to tell you what staff told you that was wrong. You all are covered under the Brown Act. This meeting is covered under the Brown Act. Because the meeting is covered under the Brown Act, you are only allowed to take certain actions that are noticed. Public comment is one thing that you can listen to at the ABR meetings, and you can actually extend on the fly my minutes if you want. One of the things that happens in your agenda when it's put together, there are headers for every single item. You know if it is a concept review, you know if it's a final approval, you know if it's PDA. Did you know that there's only 2 times in which your motions and your decisions are final? They are only final the day you make project design approval and final approval. Everything else is comments only. When you take a straw vote, a straw poll, whatever you would like to call it, on an item that has been agendized for comments only, you are just taking the temperature. You're not making a decision. That cannot be binding. And do you know why it can't be binding? Because that would violate the Brown Act. You are not allowed to actually make those decisions and have those permanently unchanged. You are a body that gets to make decisions, that gets to make decisions as projects change. And this project has changed substantially. So I'm going to walk you through the errors so that you understand exactly what you're looking at right now with the timeline for Milpas, where those errors occur, and then I'm going to go ahead and show you in the ABR guidelines all of the outs that you get and where it says everything that I just said applies to this project. If you go ahead and take a look at this page, we reviewed the videos, the agendas, and the minutes. We looked at everything. And what we determined was the very first time that it was up here for review, February 1st, 2016, comments only. The temperature was taken of the board. It then went ahead and went to Planning Commission. That was also scheduled for comments only on a concept review. They took the temperature of the board then. At that meeting, though, the staff member who actually presented the project to the Planning Commission, they didn't know what they were doing. They said it had received its compatibility findings, and the next step was final approval and then building permits. The next step after coming back would have been project design approval. That is where your first actually action and a decision could be made, and that is set in stone, so to speak. It then came back to you in June of that year. That is where you could make your first decision, and that was a project design approval. Staff told you then you'd already made your compatibility findings, but you hadn't. Because again, that was taking the temperature. It was a straw vote, a poll, if you will, because it was not scheduled for a decision or an action. The next time it was seen was July of 2016. No action really taken there. Fast forward to May of 2018. It was scheduled for comments only, no action taken, in an in-progress review. Yet, staff told you that the decision you made that day was actually final. It wasn't. They took your temperature to see what you thought about the project. You had nothing in front of you that told you what the project actually was changing. Someone verbally told you what the changes were, and staff handed the chair a list that they didn't even go over. When the chair made the motion, he said, besides the design, if barring that, do you think you could ever see this on Milpas? And then he asked you to vote on it. Again, it wasn't a vote because this was a comments-only meeting, and it is not binding. No one can tell you it's binding because you would be violating the Brown Act. And staff is telling you, basically, and telling everybody else, to violate the Brown Act. After that, you had a meeting in August. That meeting, again, comments only. Staff told you again about the substantial conformance determination, and you couldn't do a do-over. They told you about compatibility findings and that you'd made them in February of 2016. Staff came back again on September the 24th, and you had the same story, only you had the city attorney here. The city attorney obviously did not look at the agenda or the minutes, did not see what each meeting was scheduled for, and did not read the ABR guidelines. That sounds familiar. So you haven't made substantial conformance determination. That actually gets done at the final approval, and that hasn't happened yet. Staff does not make the substantial determination. You do, and you get to make it at final approval. So let's go and take a look at the second little packet that I've given you. This is all the information pulled out from the ABR guidelines. I've gone ahead and I have discussed the Brown Act, the comments only and concept review, and I have now pulled out all of the relevant information. If you go ahead and take a look at page 3, it says the ABR guidelines state that ABR shall make deliberative findings and fully explain all project compatibility criteria and how it's been evaluated. That was never done with this project. Page 57 says the ABR guidelines enlists all of the decisions that you actually have control over. Compatibility criteria analysis, the findings to approve the project for PDA, and then the project denial or approval. Under the compatibility, it says ABR must consider in the review of the development projects. That is something that you have to consider. The next thing, in order to grant a project design approval, ABR makes a finding that the project is consistent with any applicable laws and guidelines. That did not necessarily happen when this was actually, this project actually received PDA. Regarding project denial, you have your out. So I've given you the substantial conformance determination, which you have not made and which is required, but there's all sorts of details. also that you can deny the project on. The ABR may deny a project that is inconsistent with any applicable guidelines or any applicable finding. The ABR should state the reasons for the project denial in the motion for project denial. That's all you need to do. Page 53, when we're talking about the concept review, the concept review is an informal review process during which no formal action is taken. That poll, that temperature that you got and you actually make during concepts reviews are not binding in any way, shape, or form, and if anyone tells you that they are, refer them to the ABR guidelines and refer them to the agenda where something is actually agendized for comments only. During concept review, it says that the concept review is required prior to any other city reviews and before any formal action is taken by the ABR. So if this is going to go up to the Planning Commission, you take the temperature of the compatibility findings, but they're not formal because guess what? When you go to Planning Commission, they also have a concept review. They're helping you decide and giving you advice and trying to massage the project. That is their time in which they can comment. You cannot have made compatibility findings or a DPA before it goes to the concept review at Planning Commission. It just makes sense. Again, concept review does not result, not concept review, concept review does not result in a formal action, therefore it may not be appealed. Again, you're taking the temperature. With PDA, any substantial design project that changes after a project design approval will require a new project design and approval. That's what we've got here with 711 North Milpas. It's changed substantially. The residential units are now on the first floor in an area where there are no other residential units on the first floor of Milpas. Your commercial space now has a floodgate around it. There are other issues that you also need to consider, such as feasibility. What is feasible for one developer may not be feasible for another. The reason the changes were made were not necessarily because of the floodplain, which they actually had a part in, but because the developer didn't want to spend the money to have the commercial on the first floor. On page 54 of the ABR guidelines, it talks about the final approvals and how you can deny them. So, if the applicant proposes substantial changes to the plans after a PDA, a new project design will be required. This project requires that substantial conformance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Christine Newhouser. And then following Christine, we have Jose Arturo Gallegos. Or Gallegas. Okay. And then Natasha Todorovich. Did I get it right? Excellent. Hi there.
Well, so to continue where we are, I'll talk about my own part about Milpas another time. So continue on her conversation. The ABR guidelines state that the final ABR decisions must be appealed for two reasons. The final approval decision may be appealed only on the basis that it is inconsistent with the project design approval and/or the ABR does not approve the final details. Our request today, what we're asking you to do, is require plans and a new substantial conformance letter with all changes be submitted by 12 p.m. the Tuesday prior to the next meeting or reschedule the meeting. Today, make two procedural motions and vote. To do this, 2/3 of the ABR must determine that receipt of this information is an emergency. If yes, discuss and vote if number 1 should be required. If yes, discuss and vote if staff should provide a report on the inconsistencies outlined today. At the next meeting, if we could go through the exercise of making the compatibility criteria analysis, this will provide your findings for the record and for any future appeal. Comment on height, loss of commercial, floodgates, change of use to a residential and its compatibility with street and streetscape. Then the next meeting also provide all comments necessary to make the design palatable to you. If appealed and the appeal is denied, the project designs you require will be final. Make comments only if ABR does not grant a substantial conformance determination and the project is appealed and permitted, the project is approved with the following changes. And then next meeting, discuss and vote on PDA and substantial conformance determination only after number 3 and number 4. Kind of confusing. I hope you can get all that.
Excuse me, are you reading from
Yes,
something
I'm reading
that's
it. It's right here. So,
from something that was given to us,
yes, it's on the other side, the other page, this other side of that page.
this other side of this
Okay,
page?
well, maybe you don't have this, but if you want.
Says-
It's the bottom half of the first page. right
Our
there.
requests.
Yeah, see that?
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
I know I've used my 2 minutes. Can I use another 30 seconds?
I'm sorry.
How much do I have?
16 seconds.
Well, talking about 711 North Milpas, I mean, all along, we've come along and we thought that we were told that, the mass bulk and scale, that we couldn't do anything about it. And all these people here live on that side of town compared to the people that are building the project that don't live on that side of town. None of that will affect them. And it starts, the beginning, Milpas becomes a canyon. Nobody sees the Riviera. And that's part of, that's a gateway to Santa Barbara. And we love
Okay.
our part of town.
Okay, thank you very much. Jose Arturo Gallegas? Gallegas or Goes? Gallegos. Sorry about that. Okay, 2 minutes.
Okay, good afternoon. What I just found out today, that the ABR here in Santa Barbara started in 1925, which is, wow, I thought maybe it'd been around a little longer than that. And that explains why we have the Spanish style, Spanish Mediterranean style of many of our old buildings. And that tradition continued, well into the 60s, maybe part of the 70s. And this brings, the 711 North Milpas. That architectural design, that architectural design fits perfect in Phoenix, Arizona. I lived in Phoenix, Arizona for over 8 years. And I came back in 2011, October of 2011. It's like, yeah, that kind of an architectural design, you could put it anywhere in Phoenix, Arizona, and no one's going to say anything because they all look like that. I would like for this, because this is a small town. The Spaniards, they came here sometime in the 1500s. And even Taco Bell has an old Pueblo Spanish, Mexican style architectural design. Taco Bell, and that's a corporation. What I also want to point out, all the buildings that are on Milpas, they're only two stories. That's it. 2 stories. So I'm not happy about this project, but I'm willing to compromise. I would be happy to see it 2 stories and a design like these 2 drawings that are behind you. I would be okay with that. We need to keep our Spanish heritage, on architectural designs and Mediterranean style, and we should keep that. That's some industrial looking thing that, like from the City of Industry, San Francisco, Detroit, Michigan, Chicago, New York. Let's keep it, traditional.
Okay.
Spanish Mediterranean style architecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Natasha?
Hi, I know this is a surprise. Before this project came up, none of us knew one another. I mean, we became friends because of this project, trying to push back on it. And as Christine said earlier, we were told that we couldn't appeal. We were told this was a done deal. And we got misinformation. And I'm a little disturbed that we were disinformed like that. So again, we'd like to ask that you make number 2, that procedural motion and vote, and you're able to do it with 2/3 to go ahead and do that. I actually saw the very first designs of this project, and you might be surprised to know that it actually was white stucco with orange tile roof and a Spanish design, which is entirely different from how this whole thing evolved. And that's pretty much what we want you to do. Sorry to bother you, and I know it extends your day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is that everybody that wishes to speak during public comment? Seeing nobody, we'll close public comment, and we need to move on to approving minutes. Oops. Okay, do we have minutes?
Mr. Chair, I was absent for about half the meeting, so I don't think I can make a motion for approval.
Okay.
I'll be abstaining on the vote.
Okay. All right, well, be that as may.
I was not there. Yes, I know.
David, did you have any edits or clarifications?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I guess I'd like to ask planning staff if they have made any more discussions about whether or not substantial conformance has happened on the 711 North Milpas project. If there were actually compatibility determination made or compatibility analysis made, and if you guys feel it was done appropriately.
Well, let's finish our approval of the minutes first, and then we can go
Because
into that.
because that was on the minutes, if that's going to impact that or not, if we approve it, or can we approve that and still have the discussion?
All we're doing is approving the minutes. We're not.
Basically.
Yeah. We're just approving what was recorded, not discussing the.
For the sake of moving it along, I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, that's what we're doing now.
Okay with me?
Do you have it? Anything?
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from September 24th.
I just did that.
Thought you were going to already recused yourself.
Just trying to move it along.
Okay, I'll second Bob's motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay. And then we did not have a consent calendar that time. Okay. Okay, David, you wish to
Yes.
had some questions for staff.
Is it possible for staff to clarify whether the comments being made by public are accurate or not? A substantial determination was made on the project at 711 North Milpas, if that was done appropriately?
The staff is not prepared to comment on that. It was general public comment, and we usually don't comment on that.
Okay.
Also, the staff case planner who is assigned to this project is not available right now.
Okay.
So we can clarify that later.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, with regard to that and the request that was made today, that we require plans and a new substantial conformance letter with all changes to be submitted by 12.
Mr. Chair, and with respect to that request came through the public comment. If you're not to provide or direct us to do that unless it's agendized, so we can do that for the next time to discuss it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I could advise staff to come next time. If I could advise staff to come next time with this I think there's some very convincing situations here. My damn thing isn't working. So I think there's some convincing or issues here that need to be very clearly clarified for us in a clear, concise, and complete presentation next time on whether what we've done is legit or what is considered a formal a final decision or what. I would request that we have that and get this out of the way and get it sorted.
Mr. Chair, and Board Member 6, certainly next time the subject project will be on your agenda, 711 North Milpas, is that what we're speaking of?
Absolutely.
Right, so then that is something that we could certainly come back with.
If I can follow up, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would actually ask if we could have that discussion, if it has to be agendized, then to do so before that meeting, so we could have time to even process that. I think having that discussion the same day that the meeting happens, I think puts us in a rush to actually stop and have a very limited amount of time to weigh in on something like that.
So are you recommending or suggesting that project not be agendized for the next time around? I think that was what you
I'll
continued
make
to.
a motion to that effect. That we
I'll second
continue
that.
that item to the following agenda and have this discussion in 2 weeks.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain from the vote. Is the project agendized in 2 weeks?
It hasn't been agendized yet, but I believe that it was continued to that meeting of the 22nd, but now it appears that won't happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yeah. Are we violating the Brown Act if a letter from the attorney or staff or whatever is submitted to us prior to that meeting so we can in-depth understand, so we're not sitting here, scrambling. We need to get our heads around this in a timely and fashion. So is there a way that we can distribute something prior to that meeting that we can educate ourselves with?
Well, all public comment that comes to staff prior to the meeting, we could get it to you prior to the meeting. Were you
Talking about a report from either you or the attorney on the issues that are brought up about, compatibility analysis and, these issues. Can we have a letter or an abstract that explains where things are? Mm-hmm.
We can prepare something for you in advance. As we get closer to the next meeting, if we feel that that's not going to be available, we'll let you know, and we can talk about what we can give you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
For staff, it appears that the issue is decisions were made based on straw votes and not during meetings that were comments only. And there was no official action taken. Therefore, the Brown Act, would prevent those, compatibility analysis and compatibility findings were not valid because there was no official action taken. That, I think, may not be it in a nutshell, but that's the issue as far as I can see.
And Mr. Chair and Board Member Cunningham, we will work with the city attorney to provide that information.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Any announcements?
I have the consent minutes for today's consent meeting.
Great.
The minutes for the ABR consent agenda for October 8th are as follows. Item A, 322 Edison Avenue was postponed 2 weeks due to the applicant's absence. Item B, 1435 Cliff Drive received project design approval and was continued 2 weeks with the following comments. To 1, provide a material board prior to final approval. Number 2, on the site plan, provide the species and container size of any proposed landscaping, including the treatment of surfaces and irrigation system for watering the new trees. 3, include a detail of the proposed fencing. And 4, the rail indicated on sheet A 1.2 is to include a curb. Item C, 309 West Quinto Street was continued 2 weeks with the following comments. To 1, consider a different species for the interior wall as the proposed planting will get large and function as a hedge. Number 2, mulch is not an appropriate ground cover for the site. Study a green or gray-green low shrub ground cover. Gray-green low shrub or ground cover. 3, restudy the silk tree to propose at the corner. Number 4, the standing seam metal roof as currently presented is not supportable. Item D, 2217 Oak Park Lane was continued 2 weeks with the following comments. 1, to provide photos of the adjacent buildings, including their view to the location of the proposed modification. And 2, there is concern regarding potential impacts to the existing oak tree. The oak tree is to be maintained, and if impacted by the project, it will be replaced in kind. Item E, 420 West Montecito Street received project design approval and final approval. And item F, 420 East Carrillo Street was continued 2 weeks with the following comments. That 1, the cedar screening solution is not acceptable. Consider using a brick veneer to be compatible with the existing building. 2, to provide a cut sheet of the mechanical equipment at the tower and call out the height of the unit on the plans or provide a section to show that it will be properly screened. And 3, provide door and window details.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
clarification on, I think it's the Oak Park Lane project. The issue with regard to the oak tree is that if at any time in the future the oak tree fails, it shall be replaced in kind,
Okay, I'll make that correction.
not simply as an impact of the development.
Okay.
Thank you.
And one additional clarification, if I may.
Yes.
I think from what I remember with the Quinto Seat project is that we said the standing seam metal roof just wasn't acceptable, period.
Correct.
Not as proposed. I think I just
Okay.
asked that you take up the as proposed part.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion for approval of the consent
I'll second that.
minutes as corrected.
Seconded by David. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, we can, any other announcements?
Yes, I would just like to make an announcement, reminder regarding the annual recruitment for the city advisory groups. The reminder that the resignation has already passed. That was due on October 4th in order for that position to be included in this current recruitment process. But the rest of the deadlines are as follows. The application deadline is Tuesday, October 16th at 5 p.m., and then the interviews from council will follow. That was my only announcement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any subcommittee reports? I don't think anyone has
No, sir.
had any action in subcommittees lately. So we can move on to first item on the agenda. Item number 1, 2700 block of State Street.
We won't have a quorum for that item as Bob will have to step down.
Okay.
And I believe we won't have quorum for 3 other items on the agenda.
Correct.
So,
I texted Mr. Witosh 40 minutes ago, and I haven't heard back from him, so I'm guessing he's not on his way.
I sent out a quorum count earlier as well, and I didn't hear back, so.
Okay, so as of now, it appears we would have a quorum for items 2 and 3.
That's correct, yes.
Which is unfortunate.
Oh wait, I think I saw Howard.
Oh. Is Howard on his way in? There's Howard, yes. Shh. All right. Yes. she's not going to be prepared to speak about all this in detail. So, yeah. Okay. Thanks for joining us. So I guess with that, we can get back to item number 1, which is 2700 block of State Street. Okay. Okay, so this is a review after final for the change of paver color from red to buff. Project was last reviewed on June 18th. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Badad Garagosli, and I'm a traffic engineer with the City of Santa Barbara. So we brought this project to you guys a few months back, and one of the items in the project is to install permeable pavers on each corner of State and Almar. And we proposed either using red permeable pavers or the buff style in the city, and you guys took a vote and decided to go with the red style. So after that meeting, I reached out to the manufacturer of the bricks, and they sent me the closest thing they can to the red style brick that we have in the city. So here's a sample of the red that I proposed that's located throughout the city, and this is the red that they can manufacture. So we just wanted to come back and get your opinion whether you want us to continue with this terracotta style red or go with the alternative, the buff style, to match the rest of the permeable pavers in the city.
Okay.
And I brought some pictures of State Street at Calle Palo, Colorado, so just north of the project, and this is with the buff style pavers.
Thank you. Could you point to the buff style paver?
This is the buff, this is the red permeable, and this is the red brick that's throughout the city right now.
Okay. Let's, I guess we have to open up for public comment. Is anybody here interested in speaking on this project? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Howard, why don't you continue with your questions?
So I just popped in here. Do you have any comments? Do you have a copy of the comments that were made last time?
This is a review after final. All they're proposing to do is go, initially they represented this as the brick color. This is actually what's available in a paver, a permeable paver, due to the little spacer guys on the side. They are proposing to move to this color.
So you would see gaps because of the little articulation there.
Yeah, that's correct. And
those gaps would be filled with
like sand,
PG or something.
So this brick is actually just this is a brick, not a permeable paver with the cutouts. So this is just for color, but this is the style of
I see.
of the paver. Yeah.
So what is it that's up the street at?
This is the buff style. This is the buff style located at Calle Palo, Colorado, and as well on Upper De La Vina.
So when you're pointing to that, you're pointing to that as the color or the style?
Both.
That's what they'd like to change to, in lieu of this terracotta or brick color.
So then both intersections would be the same?
That's correct, yeah.
So this is comments or questions?
This is questions.
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I noticed in this photograph, I don't know whether it's just the illusion, but it seems like this is a blend. There's some darker. Sorry. There's some darker in here. Is that part of the pattern, the consistent pattern that the city uses up and down the street, or
not over here?
It's not over there. but it's here?
I,
So do you know?
I think that has to do with the way it's manufactured. Each brick isn't perfectly the same color, and I'm guessing some of them faded maybe a little bit quicker than others.
So after that, that's what's showing now is the patina of the product.
I believe so.
So it's the exact same product.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
No questions.
Okay, so in all of these intersections that are located adjacent in the rest of downtown, how many are using this color versus a terracotta color? Do you know offhand?
I don't know the exact number, but I know that all the permeable style in the public right-of-way right now is buff.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you see downtown, maybe in the sidewalks and in some of the crosswalks, that's not permeable is the red style. But everything in the area of State and Almar that's permeable is also this buff color.
Okay. Howard, do you have any comments?
Yeah. I think the color that you are proposing there is fine. The style is fine. I noticed that this is some kind of it's a diagonal weave. I think that is effective. And I would urge you to do that same at an angle, because you have an odd angle anyway with the intersection. Make it even more so that the grain and the pattern is at odds with the linearity of the curb. And also, I think that the red brick makes a lot of sense downtown because I think it's in the historic district.
Mm-hmm.
And this makes a lot of sense in the outlying upper State Street. Other than that, I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Richard?
Mr. Chair, I have no comments and ready to make a motion for approval as submitted.
Okay.
No
Any other
comments, I
comments? Okay.
I'll
Is there a
second
second to that? Okay.
Do
we
you
have-
object to the comment about the angle?
No.
Yeah, that would match the rest of the style that we have, and I believe it's called in the plans right now.
You proposed that
Yeah.
already.
I think it's a herringbone style.
pattern? Okay, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. There you go. Okay, item number 2. You gonna take a little break? Oh, okay, great. All right. Number 2, okay, 517 West Figueroa Street. This is a review after final of infield changes to landscaping. Changes include removal of approved planters and vines previously proposed at the entrance of each unit. Project was last reviewed October 16th of 2017. Okay, if you could introduce yourselves and
Steve Johnson, owner of the property.
And I'm Chuck McClure, the landscape architect.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need to ask. I was not here when this was initially reviewed, but this is a review after final. Am I allowed to be a part of the participation in the vote? Or should I abstain, still having enough quorum?
This would be a separate action, so you may stay.
Yes. And comment.
Yes.
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 Yes, that's my understanding as well. So as a review after final, it's essentially a new approval, I guess.
Just wanted to clarify.
Okay. Well, why don't you show us the changes? And
Okay, sure. So You may have noticed this building come out of the ground the last couple of years. It's on this, if you're going southbound on 101, and you get off at Korea, if you look to your right, there's a white building that's come up out of the ground.
Images.
And it's a nice looking building. Originally, the plans had talked about in front of each door having a large square pot that was going to grow vines up on these metal trellises. And what we're asking for today is Steve, in talking with the iron people or the fabrication people, have advised him not to do the vines because they're saying that'll shorten the life and cause corrosion on the metal overheads. And so the proposal today is to eliminate the pots that were previously approved, and I have some details that show that. On the second floor, so the steps come up, the freeway's over here. The steps come up, and in front of each door there was a square pot, and it looked like this in section, and we're going to put a chunk of concrete and drag a wire up, and then we were going to have these vines in 4 places. And what we're asking for today is to have that'll be eliminated.
Okay, and that's the extent.
Yes.
Of the changes. Okay. We will open this up for public comments. Anybody here interested in speaking on this project? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment and go into questions. David, do you want to start?
Sure, thank you. What's the factory finish going to be of that steel?
It's currently galvanized, but in order to maintain the life of that expensive item, I will very likely paint it as required in the future. My painter suggested 1 year of exposure before the first application of paint, and I agreed for that side of the building because it's accessible.
Thank you. That's my only question.
Okay. Richard?
Yeah, was there a consideration for replacing the eliminated plants somewhere else, such as at the front of the railing of that wide balcony, to get the soft effect?
Well, we do have vines proposed down at the ground level, in ground level planters that are intended to come up and get on this railing. So that will be a green element. And these pots do sit behind that. If that's a 42-inch guardrail, the detail that I have for these pots,
the pots that are going away,
yes, is the same height as that. So you could make the case that the pots are really not visible from the view. However, once they get up above the handrail or the guardrail, then of course they would be.
Could I add some comment on that? That east elevation, the very scant view of that elevation, period. When you're zipping by on the freeway or perhaps on the Surfliner, you get a very brief glimpse, and otherwise it's not widely seen.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, just to ask whether there is a plant material that could be put in pots along that back of that railing that would develop a height to replace, to get softness up at that height.
This is the area that's being,
The
plants are being eliminated from that?
Yes, in pots. These three, we do have a pretty heavy treed property line here on the east as well, which will, in time, do quite a bit to soften that facade.
This is this?
Yeah, that's right.
There are the trees, there are vines in the chain link fence
Yes,
along the
right.
property line, and there's vines coming up to the guardrail. And I'm also allowing the residents to place their own planters, which they will hand water. One resident has done so already. little citrus plant. And I'm encouraging, and I will pay, I've told the residents I will pay if others wish to do that.
But are there plantings along that east property line that will get,
That's what he's.
Oh, there they are.
That's what
Okay.
he's
Trees.
describing,
Oh,
that
okay.
eventually these
All
will
right.
grow up.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
How tall are we talking here for these?
Callistemon's probably a 40-foot tree, would you estimate, or?
The trees that are on the other side of the freeway, between the freeway and the Carrillo Castillo parking lot, commuter parking lot, the trees that are between the lot and the freeway are the Callistemon viminalis, the weeping bottlebrush. So,
Big.
yeah,
They're pretty big.
at least 30 feet tall and would spread 30 feet. The other trees, the Arbutus marina, will get larger. So Chuck's drawn them pretty small. They'll fill that whole space. But I think we need to essentially condition the project on the landscaping be allowed to grow, reach full size, and not controlled.
Well, we're in questions right now, so.
Then I'll put a question mark at the end of
Yes,
that?
perfect. Any other questions
It's bad grammar,
on
but
that?
I have no questions.
Howard?
So I heard that the vines are going away and that that would leave the trellis exposed. The material of the trellis was galvanized, but you're going to paint it what color?
Natural, something to match the galvanize.
A natural metallic color.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. Only question I have.
Okay, my questions are, so you're saying that you're encouraging the residents to have potted plants on this patio, correct?
Yes and no. I'm certainly going to pay for it if they want them. And encourage in the sense that they would maintain them, not throw cigarette butts in them, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And one resident has done so already.
Okay. Is the irrigation in place that's in this?
No, it is
drawings?
not.
Okay. Let's go to comments. David, do you want to start?
Sure. I don't propose that the project. I think steel is a very durable material. It's one of the most durable out there. So I think the concern that some vines are going to deteriorate that, or I guess I don't see that argument. If it was wood, even, I mean, there's a number of examples where you have wood trellises that have vines growing over them, and they still hold out over time. And I think the potted aspect, I think the self-care might potentially fail. And I get off on that exit quite frequently, and there's a lot of planting between the freeway and there, but there's a lot of view corridors. We actually see a pretty significant amount of that elevation. So I think the planting is a nice element. It breaks up the massing, it provides these little pockets of green visibility there that provide human scale. And I actually thought it was a nice detail element. So I think removing that changes that elevation significantly in a way that you can actually see a lot of that. So again, I think because of the material, the steel, I don't think it's enough to warrant removing all those vines.
Okay. Richard?
Mr. Chair, I think that with the vines along the front railing and the significant trees, as long as the project's conditioned that they're not controlled and can mature to their natural height, I don't have any problem with the reduction, the elimination of the pots.
Okay. Bob?
We did a similar thing at the Energy Center at Cottage Hospital at Junipero and Bath Street. And it's been probably 15 years since that's been installed, and I've heard no complaints about the issue. However, I think the trees are going to do the job. So, I would be willing to accept that we don't have the vines on that upper floor. I would want to make sure that the vines that are supposed to grow up from the lower level are allowed to grow onto the rail and not stopped short of the rail, so that we don't have that exposed rail in view.
Okay. Howard?
I agree with the comments. I'm always put off by this galvanized steel and paints that make it look like natural galvanized material. I think some of the other elevations have a very nice striation of terracotta and another color, and that has a kind of a warming effect to the building, which is pretty cubic. And it would be very nice if that railing could, if you aren't going to go with weathering steel, maybe you could paint it a terracotta or like a primer red. That would look very, it still look industrial, but it would be a way of warming up the color, like the drapes over there.
Basic Rust-Oleum.
Rust-Oleum, yeah. Well, the primer, what do you call it? Out of steel fabrication shops have a thing called red primer, which is very deep. It's a very nice color. I just am totally averse to things that are galvanized steel and look like galvanized steel. They belong in an industrial yard. Even though you have a glimpse of this building from a train going 60 miles an hour, you only have a short time to appreciate the building.
Okay. Any other comments?
I have a...
From Howard. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Anything else?
So may I add and question Howard, where's the stop and start? Just those 4 canopies that are subject to the reduction of the...
Well, that's not what they're proposing today. All they're proposing today is to remove the approved vines.
But
painting them could be a condition of approval.
Yeah.
The color of the paint.
So if they eliminate something, we can add some. We would wish to have something added. Would be a fair game, no?
I don't know.
Maybe we could ask
You have staff here.
We could ask the applicant whether they're willing to paint those 4.
Are there other canopies?
Yeah, there's
Well,
one.
there's that one with the angled roof on it.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, Howard.
So in other words, if you start
Where do
with
you
one
stop?
side, you have to really kind of go all the way around.
That's my problem.
So how many more canopies are involved if you?
There are, may I speak? Or answer the question? There are 4 trellises along that side. There's a canopy over the rear stairway. On the other side, the west side of the building, there are no trellises. There are balconies and
There's all sorts of
awnings.
metal. There's all sorts of metal elements, so you would be painting for quite some time. My own feeling is that I have a hunch that one of the reasons the project was approved was because of this layered landscape approach that you provided. And I have a feeling that you showing the vines growing up onto these elements was really a part of that. And that was really one of the reasons that it was supported, I imagine.
Could I respond to that?
Hold on. So it's my inclination to say that it's okay to remove the vines, but that the pots are located and planted with some material that grows tall enough to act in a similar fashion and provide some softening effect.
Some vertical material.
Correct.
Not a vine that grows onto the canopy.
I would
Sure.
support that, Mr. Chair.
So, does somebody want to make that motion? Or another motion?
I'll make that motion. Approved on the condition that the vines be replaced with a vertical plant material that will reach a height of 10 feet.
Okay. You have a suggestion? Is it
No,
bamboo, or-
that could come back on consent.
Okay.
So is it continued or approved
Yes,
with a condition?
well, how would you care to
If you'd like to see it return, then I'd say continued to consent
continue to
with the
consent
comment.
then, please?
Under discussion.
You going to second that?
Yeah, I'll second it under discussion.
Okay.
Thank you. Would you maintain the condition that the trees at the east property line grow to their maturity?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that along the tracks?
Before we take a vote, do you have something you want to?
As I mentioned earlier, the irrigation is not in place and would be very expensive to include at this point. I think I've gone well above and beyond the call. There is irrigation shown on that drawing, that detail. It was not included in the plumbing plans, and so it was missed at that point. I didn't become aware of this detail until very late in the project.
Then a question.
And, if I could just one last, the vines and the trellises were not part of the project design approved plans. They only appeared in the final plans, and I take blame for not noticing that detail change between the two.
Do you have water available in wall boxes on that side of the building where your tenants could water the plants that they put in their own pots?
Any access to hose bibs or any?
Not exterior, but there's a half bath right near the front door. They could readily bring out a pot of water to do their own watering.
Is that back deck accessible from the outside so a gardening service could get up onto the deck?
Back deck, the deck servicing the front doors?
Well, the deck where these pots are located?
Yes, that's certainly accessible by gardening service.
Chuck, could you modify your design to include in-pot watering reservoirs?
Yeah, we could specify pots that has that situation.
That could be done. Your gardening service could refill those on a regular basis. They ooze water into the planters so that there's, the plants don't dry up. So I would make that part of the condition, and again, continue to consent unless you want to come up with a plant right now.
I don't shoot well from the hip. I would like not to come back, but I suppose that's just a 15-minute meeting. If I come back,
it's
okay.
2 weeks from today. We don't have consent next week.
And then I could have that thing specified as well. So, okay.
Okay, then continued 2 weeks to consent for the applicant to return with vertical plants in the pots that'll reach a height of 10 feet and in-pot watering systems.
Okay.
Is it possible for me to just request a flat denial of my request? Because I would plan to appeal this to the Planning Commission based on the Housing Accountability Act. Gone above and beyond meeting the aesthetic requirements for this project.
Well, that's your opinion. I would defer to, no, I would not defer to a substitute motion. I'd like the motion to stand.
Okay.
And
Well, we have a motion. We still have a second.
Yes.
Okay. Let's hear all in favor.
Aye.
Oh, excuse me. So what is the motion?
I'll just.
Is to continue to consent for the applicant to return with vertical shrubs or trees in the pots that'll reach a height of 10 feet against the building. And the pots to be watered with in-pot watering systems, which a gardening service can fill on a regular basis in lieu of the irrigation system, which was not installed,
Right.
and in lieu of the vines on the trellises.
Okay, I understand. However,
This was a vote. We're not.
Yeah.
We're done discussing. We're voting.
we're done discussing?
Oh, no, we're in discussion.
We're
Are
in
we not?
discussion.
I just called for a vote.
Oh, he just called for the vote.
We were
Sorry.
in the middle of voting.
You say motion second, and then you ask for discussion. I didn't hear that.
Okay, we had discussion.
Well, I didn't. I'd like to add my 2 cents.
Well, I think we're past that now.
Okay.
I mean, we had a motion. It was second. There was discussion under that second. We took a vote.
If you're going to vote no, you can state why.
That's what I would like to do.
Okay.
Okay.
I agree with the comments about the landscaping. I still feel very strongly about galvanized steel trellises. And if the owner is willing to paint those trellises to warm up that elevation, a rust-colored, I would support the motion and the second. Otherwise, I'm going to vote against the motion.
Okay. Well,
I don't think the.
it doesn't matter.
I don't think the owner's ever going to have to paint those
No.
trellises.
So we had a vote. We had 4.
We haven't even made the vote yet.
We haven't
We're in the
voted.
middle of the vote.
Yeah.
Well, I just
stopped
gave
in.
my reasons why.
Okay. So let's take our vote. How many members are in favor of Bob's motion?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. That's 3? 3 ayes and nay? 2. Okay. Motion passes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Oh, thank you.
See you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay. So item number 3. David, are you headed? You're going to.
I can sit through it. I just want to leave.
Okay, so item number 3, 519 Garden Street. This is a first concept review, comments only. Project requires further
Stacy, how you doing?
environmental assessment. This is a proposal for a remodel of 2 existing commercial structures. The project consists of the conversion of a single-story warehouse to an event space and catering kitchen, and the addition of 16 square feet of office space to an existing single-story office building. Also proposed is the demolition of an existing site wall, facade remodels for multiple elevations, new flat work, and new landscaping. Project proposes to reduce the number of on-site parking spaces from 7 to 6. Okay, and again, this is a concept review, comments only. Okay, if you could introduce yourselves.
Good afternoon. I'm Tracy Brunel, the architect for the project.
Okay.
I'm Isabel Green, the landscape architect for the project.
You might have to say that again into the.
Isabel Green, the landscape architect.
Okay.
Alex Tate, the owner.
Great, welcome. Okay.
All right. Let me kind of walk you through what we're doing here.
First of all, yeah, where are we?
So 519 Garden Street is 1 block down from the city.
Same side of the street.
Okay.
Opposite side, yeah. On the
West
side of the street.
West side of the street. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with Hi-Fi Club, but that's who used to be there. And there's a kind of a little Spanish office building. This is what it looks like from the front. There's a solid plaster wall and a wood gate. It kind of closes it off from the street, so it's not a terribly noticeable property. I was not familiar with it until we got involved. And so Hi-Fi Club has moved, and the new owners own a flower and event business and do weddings and events and things like that. And so they're looking to turn this into a facility where they can have their offices, sell some of their products, and convert the rear building to a catering kitchen and an event space where a reception could be held there. And so there's the involvement as far as the architecture is not very extensive. There are some changes that we're proposing. But there's a lot happening with the site that Isabel is involved with. That drawing is outdated at this point. That's why I sort of folded it up and was hiding it. We're waiting for a new full-size print, but Isabel has a new site right here. We ran into kind of a buzzsaw from ADA perspective and found out that a bunch of the stuff we were trying to do was not going to fly, and we realized, well, we don't want to waste our time and your time with a proposal that we know isn't going to work, and this was only a few days ago. So what we're proposing to do is to take down the wall and put up a wrought iron fence, and I'll let Isabel expound upon that a little bit more when we get to it, and then bring people in, and then around the building, we're going to put a pathway.
Sorry to stop you here. You have to speak into that microphone and use the pointer.
Right. Technical. I'm going to go back to the site plan. So the wall comes out, the wood gate comes out. We'll be doing a new wrought iron gate, a wrought iron fence, and a wrought iron man gate. Great. And then we're going to develop a walkway down this side, which is going to come down and bring people into the back of the building and be an accessible path of travel to the rear building. we're able to move the parking back and get that in there. And we actually are over parked because they changed this to having a zone of benefit where our required parking went to 1 to 500 instead of 1 to 250. So we're able to, I think, I'm not sure what the count is, but we may lose a parking space. So that's the basic idea. And then other than that is we're trying to make some adjustments to the building. The owners aren't really crazy about the style of this with the Spanish tile and this kind of stepping parapet. This building, I think, has been remodeled in the past, and I don't think it makes a ton of sense the way it's working right now. So what we're proposing to do is to, right now the rear building has a big, standard storefront type divided up door and then a roll up door like you would expect in a warehouse. So our proposal is to come in and do something like a Riviera Bronze, really nice pair of doors and a transom above with like a floating trellis that things could be planted on and hung. There's a lot of trying to kind of accentuate what they do as far as their business in the design of this. So we were talking about maybe having a water feature on the wall here, and we were going to just kind of clean up this parapet a little bit. And we've done something similar into the front. Instead of having all those steps and all those pitch roofs, we're just going to put a flat roof over this front piece and straighten this piece out so this part in here gets demolished. And we were going to develop an entry through here, but that's where we found out we were going to have to fill this whole area up with ramps or lifts and things, and that isn't really important to the way they want to use it, so we decided not to do that. We're going to bring people in and everyone will come in the back. The accessible parking will be here and it should work pretty well. And then we'll come down into the back space through these really nice doors into this event space with a support for a catering type kitchen that can support the events that are going to happen there. And so we've changed this parapet to be a more symmetrical arrangement, and we're going to do corrugated metal awnings over this pair of windows and then do some sort of light steel or wire structure or something where we can espalier planting around that window to accentuate it and have the people come in and come past all this as they go in. And this is an idea. This is an idea for the sign that's going on. I know you guys don't do that, but that's where the thinking is right now. And then we're going to have a blade sign with their logo on it that would be mounted probably right in here and come forward so that people could see it a little easier from the angles of the street. And I think with that, I will turn it over to Isabel and let her walk through the landscaping part of the project.
Well, it is a floral design business and quite unique, as I've seen already. And we tried to dress the whole site up to be commensurate with that. Right now, there are miles and miles of paving, and they pretty much need the paving to park for the events and the required spaces. So we decided to coat all the asphalt without changing it with these colored surfacing designs. And then make the front yard very floral. Oh, and with a very much of a see-through wrought iron fence, which we featured to buy on-the-shelf panels, and then have a welder weld very imaginative pieces to them. And so you'll see the garden through it, and we'll put some arches here over the walkway to the back. And we've turned what were steps here into platforms for their pots so that they can display the plants. And we're trying to keep every bit of vegetation we can here, allowing only the backup space. Oh,
sorry.
Not used to this.
Again, here's the pointer.
Not as if I haven't done a bit of public speaking, but I don't like it. getting a little bit of extra greenery here by the parking, the wheel stops stop right here. This is the walkway to get the handicapped people back to the event space. And then we're going to plant 3-inch succulent ground covers here so that you have greenery on both sides. And so that when the people are looking from the front and coming in, you'll have a amazing kind of green aspect. Even here with trellises on the walls and air plants and that sort of thing. Then these freestanding walls are added really partly just for looks, to mitigate the starkness of the rear building. And we'll have probably a grill work on one of them with bromeliads. And I intend to put some amazing succulents here like Limero cereus to stand stark against the wall. Added shade, we're keeping all the trees that exist and adding shade trees, flowering shade trees. And we were having a water feature here. We may move it over in this area. And then we've added planters here to protect the handicap access from the parking lot. And then the handicapped ramp is designed to be something quite a special experience with a curvaceousness and a very fancy wrought iron handrail. I think that might be it. Want to add anything, Chris? Oh, where's Chris?
I think that covers it.
Okay.
Okay. It might be helpful if you have additional photos of the surrounding area, if you wanted to show those to us, that would be ideal.
Me too. Let's see. So this is the neighbor to the south. That's the neighbor to the north on the same side of the street. This is sort of a panorama. There's a Jeff Shelton building across the street, and then the Planned Parenthood, and I'm not sure what the use of this building is, but this is a straighter view into Planned Parenthood and a little bit closer onto that. These are a little small.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. If that concludes your presentation, then we will open it up for public comment. Anybody in the audience wishing to address the project? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. And we'll move into questions from the board. Howard, do you want to start?
Okay. So this resurfacing of the existing pavement, what is that actually?
The product is called Surface X.
So it comes in colors,
Mm-hmm.
and it is applied, scattered, broadcast, or?
I believe it's brushed or sort of painted on.
Okay.
We haven't used it, but we've seen samples of it.
So when it's all done, is it like a granular surface, or is it sparkly, or is it?
Not sparkly, fairly smooth. The events, when there are not cars here, there will be tables and people walking around, and we wanted to have it very nice.
Yeah.
And, spike heels and.
Okay, yeah, I understand. Okay. So this elevation sketch on this sheet, which is the first sheet, I'm looking at the office in front and the event space in back, and the elevation that I'm seeing here is a little different than the elevation that you show over on AX2 or whatever. Mm-hmm. What's all that about?
Well, I think it's about information that was sent over initially that they have on their drawings and just placed on there, but they're not really doing the elevations of the building. We are, so you should rely. Those are existing there.
This is existing.
These are the new drawings.
So what is that page, new, proposed?
Page 1, which is, I think, the second page of that set. But again,
So that's what it looks like.
those
I
have
see.
changed. You should really need to look at this one.
I don't have that in our set either.
Okay, this question, So in the event center, we're looking at a facade that's been rearranged a little bit, and two openings that go back into these steel glass doors and so forth.
Yeah.
So there's a wall here, and I see another wall. You talked about a water feature wall. Is that this wall over here?
No, in the center is.
Well,
where
this is the water feature wall.
Possibly, yeah.
This, I see. Okay. And then there's a little fountain element over here.
Well, that's the water feature that might move over. We're talking about.
Oh, it's this or this?
Yeah, because as the parking had to move back, we may not have the room. We have to kind of take another look at that.
This is a constantly moving project.
I'm very moved. Okay. That's my questions.
Okay. So am I to understand it that you're going to keep the queen palms and all the other
The ones
trees?
that show, so far, yes.
Well, they don't really show that I
point
can
over
see.
here.
We have removed some.
So we need to point over here so the
So
cameras
you need the
can...
demo plan.
Well, I'd like to just see it on the landscape
Okay.
plan. you know,
Okay.
As the queen palms as
There were some
integral
queen
to the
palms
plan.
here.
Uh-huh.
And these two remain, as shown, these three remain.
Okay, so in the front, where'd that photograph go? I'll bet it's the last one. There you go. So in the front, I see 1, 2, 3. Would those be removed?
This plan has the removal, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 shown. And that one too, I think.
So what sheet is that? Is that this sheet?
So
there you
X,
go.
X, 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 X. And this one we were going to remove, and I decided to keep it.
Okay. Excuse me, may I have the pointer? Thank you. Along this side, do you have landscape on the adjacent property that compensates for no vertical elements along here, as well as over here?
Well, actually, there's a neighboring hedge that kind of leans over the wall.
Uh-huh.
But I intend to have tall things in here.
Okay, but I don't see them.
Oh, well, they're not trees.
Okay.
I intend these two palms to sort of arch over the driveway to match the other arches. And then well, I have a tentative plant list for these things. Some would be tall and some would not. It's an eclectic mix of things.
Those reeds and grasses?
Some.
Is this that wall?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and the existing trees are teepoos, correct? Are you doing anything to accommodate their ultimate growth with regard to the paving, root pruning, et cetera?
Well, that's maintenance. We could put a root barrier. Right now, they don't seem to bulge up the paving.
Okay.
And they're fairly big.
Yeah. And what is this new tree going to be?
Might be a Chiananthus. Might be something lovely. These two are crab apples. Don't know yet. Shade. Canopy tree. Probably deciduous.
Okay.
I held back till we got the paving through ABR because who knows what the plantings will have to accommodate.
That's all the questions. Thank you.
Richard, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Tracy, can you lead me through the little front building, front elevation? I'm not quite clear on that. Where does it show up? Right here?
Yeah.
So you're going to I'm confused.
Here, let me give you the planes here.
Yes.
That's the furthest back, and this is forward of that plane, and then this is forward of all of it again. So we're going to remove this whole thing completely, and that whole roof goes away. So we've got the main wall plane, and then this plane. And so what we're going to do is just come in here and put a flat piece over this, and just rework the parapet on this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty straightforward.
So this, where this turns in, is that line right there?
Yeah, then you can see the change in the plan there.
Oh, I get it. Okay. So there's no entry?
No, not on this side.
Not on this side.
Accessibility.
Okay. And I just was wondering, you said, I understand why this planting here would have to be 3 inches high or so the car can overhang it. Are you planning to do the same thing here, or this could be higher planter?
That would be things that stick up.
Okay. They're rendered the same, so I wondered. All right, that's my questions.
Okay.
Can you guys go to the one sheet that showed the elevations? Yeah, thank you. What's the material of that new flat roof portion? Yeah, thank you. And the two little mini awnings that are going next to it over those windows.
The awnings were intended to be corrugated steel. I hadn't really thought through the flat roof that carefully, but it'll probably be PVC. It seems like that's what we're doing all these flat roofs now.
Like a plaster finish edge on the face, or is the PVC going to wrap over?
Well, I think the reality is we may want to have a gutter piece on it. So you'll probably have a piece of sheet metal that turns down into the gutter, because if you let water drip off those things, I don't know, it gets kind of nasty.
Okay. And then the existing steps, so it looks like from the scheme that I have versus what you guys proposed right now, the door's taken out, so it's just a window at the front, correct?
Yeah, it's this
The
pair
office.
of display windows here. Yeah, and then another one there.
So then why keep the steps at the front then?
Well, these are now designed to be kind of 12-inch steps up where they can be set up with pots and plants and try to dress up the whole front patio.
The whole thing
As
is to
attractively
make a
as possible.
display of the front of the building to intrigue people out on the sidewalk. This is an unusual, unique business.
For those steps that are whatever they're right now, you're going to pour up and build those up to 12 inches?
Well, the little steps there now will come out. They're just a little straight run of
Gotcha.
kind of a pretty unattractive.
And then you're going to pull up 12 and 12 or something like that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's really to be developed. I mean, like I said, we made this change suddenly. And if the whole concept seems
Friday, I think
okay,
it was.
then there's a lot of details that we need to get through and develop.
Okay. And it seems like from your conversation, too, that there's no primary or entrance at the front, right? So everything's going to be filtered through the back?
That's right.
And then sorry, I'm going to scoot this over. The pathway that's going behind the cars right now, is that just kind of like an informal walkway? I mean, because that material is going to be differentiated?
Oh, this one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really intended to be a walk. It's just
Sure.
more of this sort of beautiful patterns in the paving.
Would there be any consideration then since you have that primary path to travel, running along the side property line now in front of the nose of the cars, to maybe make that material match so it stands out more as the primary travel?
Oh, back here?
Yeah, I just wondered because I see that kind of blending away now, and then
Yeah.
if I were there on site, I would probably think I
I
would
think it
walk
probably
through
could
behind the,
be.
side, the
We
cars.
just got this handicap thing on Friday and tried to quickly adjust.
Okay.
I think it should be. Like, go here.
Okay. And then the one last note that I had was the trash enclosure, at least on the set that I had, was calling out like a 10-foot high wall that's being built around it. Is that existing, or are you guys proposing to pull it up higher?
Well, the wall would be a freestanding panel to disguise the fact that we're hiding a bunch of garbage there. And then the fence would be probably 5-foot fence.
I guess, does it need to be 10 feet then, or is there a reason why you guys want to pull that up to that height?
It's a matter of the looks for this rear building that's so stark. And I think now this one has narrowed, so I think it better be shorter. And this one might be commensurately a little shorter.
Because you guys are trying to get that
Yeah,
symmetry on
trying
the
to
flank.
get something besides just that big straight wall.
Well, she's creating a canvas to put something against.
Gotcha.
You
Like a
know,
backdrop.
So,
Okay.
and kind of layering back to the building creates some interest.
Okay.
They're going to do amazing things. They're going to have, well, going to use the neighboring building for show, for light show.
Oh, sorry, last question. I take that back. That surface effects, have you guys looked at it at all enough to see if it's going to be considered permeable or not? I just don't know if it's going to
It's
affect
not
your-
permeable.
Okay.
But we're not adding any impermeable surface.
So you guys are exempt from having to make that a totally
Mhm.
impermeable?
So
okay.
we're leaving the
Impermeable.
existing paving there and
Yeah,
trying to
just
treat it, so
not
we don't
touching it.
Gotcha.
have
Cool.
to do that.
Okay. No further
Keep
questions.
it drained.
Okay, that's it. A few questions to follow up on that. So is this the existing driveway right now?
Let's see, approximately. It's narrowed down to 12 feet.
Okay, and then there is existing planting
Mhm.
along here, and this
Well, right now, what is there?
looks like there's some hedge of some sort. I don't
Yeah,
know where that
it's
ends
the
up.
neighbor's hedge.
Here we go.
Well, yes, there is.
So there's a little curb, asphalt curb, and then a planted area.
Mm-hmm.
We're increasing that a little bit.
Okay. So I understand the accessibility and the access required. Did you study that at all happening on this side of the building?
The
As
answer
opposed
is
to
yes,
down?
we sort of didn't like it
Okay.
right next to the automobiles.
Okay.
And we wanted to make this a nice, generous, inviting opening, whereas there isn't really room to do it on this side accessibly.
Well, the separation required, if you put them side by
I
side,
understand, yeah.
and then the fire department struggle, because
I
we're
understand.
narrowing their access, it's all.
Sure, and then these steps are existing?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and then to follow up on the questions about this wall, so you have this wall, which is this, and is it better on, I guess it doesn't really appear on the architectural so much.
No, it's not shown, although I'm showing the idea of drawing something against it, but I didn't draw her pieces on my building.
It's a landscape feature.
Okay, but a tall plaster wall
So-
probably?
Yeah,
like that?
probably plaster to match the building.
Okay.
Relate to it, but bring the size down.
Okay, and then this element is the actual structure of the building, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a recess, and then there's a storefront
You
proposed.
can actually walk in
Mhm.
this space.
Okay, now, then you're showing suspended trellis. Is this open to the sky?
No.
Inside here? So there's a roof over this. So you're recessed, and then you have another trellis element in there. Okay, got it. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I've got a couple more questions.
Okay.
Could you clarify the PVC issue on that canopy? Is that going to be a visible element?
The roof?
Yeah.
No, you can't really see down on it. You can't get above it. Everything's so flat in this area.
Okay.
So you'll really, what the concern is going to be the edge. What's the detail along the edge and how does that look?
And how do you didn't clarify how you were going to do that?
Well, I think what we're going to need to do is just do a really nice, thankfully the footage of it is not too much, so we can probably afford to do like a really nice square copper gutter or something like that.
Okay.
So you'll just see the edge of it and then
Okay.
the soffit.
Is the rear building sprinklered? Is that why you're okay with a 12-foot wide driveway? Have you cleared
It's-
that with the fire department?
It's going to be sprinklered.
Okay.
We're required to do that because of the use.
Oh. Thank you.
Okay, let's go into comments. David, do you want to start?
I like what you guys are doing with like the cleaning up, especially of the rooftops and the wall planes at the front. So I think that those are effective gestures and kind of simplifies things and presents a really nice facade. The awnings in the front, though, the metal and the corrugated, I would maybe even, I guess without definition of what's happening at the office at those awnings, is maybe find consistency in that. Or maybe show if there's examples of that. I think that Arts Forum building nearby might have details like that, if I'm not mistaken. Otherwise, maybe go off the simplification of that flat eyebrow that you're doing over the larger window, potentially, even if they're smaller. I just think that...
Oh, something flat.
it's starting to read, I guess, the facade now is more kind of Art Deco, especially with that parapet cap detailing and things like that. So I think if you can find maybe some kind of awning approach that would help reinforce that design style a little bit more versus the corrugated. They kind of just seem as like a stick-ons right now. And I especially like that landscaping, if that's going to be accurate, that you're going to try to create things that are climbing up that wall face to soften that. I think that would look nice, especially for that area. So if there's a way to do that and you're not worried about the deficiencies or waterproofing, I think that'd be awesome.
That's a good idea.
Just kind of going back on that comment I had earlier about the path of travel, I actually agree with what Chairman Moore said, Vice Chairman Moore, about the path of travel running along the driveway. I think it's more visible at that approach, but from the sounds of it, it creates some complications with your clearances. So if there's an effort that can be made to kind of keep those right there, I think intuitively I would probably walk near the driveway because the steps are leading down there and so forth. But if you're going to keep it as you have it proposed right now, then I would just continue a patterning material that's different from the parking lot to show that it's meant to be the primary path of travel back to the trash enclosure and the event center in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like you guys were aware of that consideration. You guys answered the part about the planners. I see what you're getting for the front now. The surface material, I'd just say if you can provide a sample next time of what that looks like. I've seen the surface effects before, but I'd like to kind of see what you guys are going to do for this project. And the conversation about that larger eyebrow detail in the front, I would probably think there's something nice about it that it's clean right now. I think adding a gutter to it would kind of help make it a little bit more busy. So if you want to maybe do a concealed system, I know it's more expensive, or find a way to divert that water back to a back end corner, maybe doing a rain chain or something so it's a lot less visible. I think keeping that clean profile that you're doing right now would probably be more desirable versus having to build that up again with some kind of gutters and things like that. And then lastly, I would just say if you could provide more consistent sets before the meeting. It's kind of hard for me to have to look over to this one set versus seeing what's on my stuff. So
Sorry, I should have brought more than one.
That'd be appreciated. And then just details of the awnings, whatever you guys end up going with, kind of more, maybe even if it's just conceptual at that point, just to kind of see what the assembly's starting to look like, because I think it would be interesting in seeing in plan and some first start of how those details are going to start to work out. Otherwise, like I said, I think it's nice, the direction you guys are moving with it, both landscape-wise and architecturally.
Richard?
Yeah, can I have my earphones? I had the pointer.
Hand the pointer over.
Oh, okay.
So I think my comments boil down to the sense of entry from the street. Yeah, you look and you see no front door, and you're kind of, you have to jog around and find it. I'm suggesting that perhaps architecturally, I think David already mentioned some stronger, it was in this area, stronger paving patterns, but I think perhaps maybe there's an opportunity to do some kind of, you can build to the property line. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's some kind of trellis or canopy or arcade, and the door, if you're replacing the wrought iron, maybe this moves over to where you're encouraging people, first of all, by arranging the entry closer to this, and then having some kind of statement that says, "Hey, this is where I go. Yeah. This is the inviting place."
For having an arch, several arches over it, I believe.
Yeah, well, perhaps it extends out because you're not limited to your setbacks and so forth. Maybe that makes a feature that says, "Yeah, wow, that's where I want to go." And the only other comment is, I think that I enjoy the kind of the soft contemporary that we see with the ups and downs and the parapets and so forth. It's soft enough that it's not harsh. I would even say that perhaps when you're studying the awnings and so forth, that perhaps you have reference to the wrought iron material and so forth, and not classic wrought iron with the scrolls and so forth, but a contemporary take on that material. Those are my comments.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think it's a great little project.
Okay, Bob?
I would echo Richard's comments regarding the access. I think since you're removing the wall and doing a whole new, system along the front, there's really no reason to have this gate centered on this building.
Out there in the hall, we were all saying that.
Okay. I
was thinking of just moving it
yeah,
somewhat more.
shift it so that it is
Yeah.
more focused on the access.
Yeah. I don't think it should be straight line. That's
Whatever you want to
too
do, but
confining,
shift it
mhm.
somehow. I think the thing that I like most about this site is the current wall and wooden gates and the bougainvillea. And I hate to see those go, but I understand why you're doing it. But I really don't like the idea of removing the queen palms. I don't think, unless, I would encourage you to come back with a more detailed preliminary landscape plan with plant images so that everybody on the board can see what you're proposing.
Happy to do that. This was meant to be
Right.
conceptual.
I'm not sure that crab apples are the best thing here. And I think that keeping the queen palms, I don't see any good reason to remove them. And they do a lot for the neighborhood. So I would really like to see those stay. They're going to be nice skyline elements someday, and right now they're beautiful.
Would you be content with just keeping the one down here that creates the
Well,
view?
let's look at the first photograph on your set. If we can find that again, Richard.
I think that's it. You're talking about this one from the street?
Yeah. I mean,
there you go.
that's just, that really makes the site right now. And as I said, I don't see any valid reason for removing those. So just please consider keeping them. Other than that, I think the landscape plan is fine, and I like the idea that you're getting creative with it. And obviously you're drawing people back into the rear space where events can be held. But I think that the street frontage for me, those palms are just beautiful, and I'd hate to see them go. Thank you.
Okay, Howard?
I like this project. I think it has potential for being very soft and playful. And I don't have more suggestions to add than those already made. I agree with those. I think there might be in the developing the architectural plans, the avoidance of hard-edged metal parapet caps, corrugated metal awnings that look industrial. This has a very sweet, kind of a quaint 1920s little Spanish hacienda, whatever, look to it. I don't know whether that's going to remain or whether it's going to go away, but the building is very quaint. And it would be, I see what you're doing, and I think that it's going to be very handsome. The event centers will be very, very exciting. So anyway, that's what I have to say. Look forward to seeing what happens.
Okay. Well, my own comments would be that I think it's a great idea, really nicely thought out. I like the ideas back here for enhancing all this paving and all the lush landscape. I think that's great. I think it's really unfortunate that you're removing this entry and really turning your back on this street, which I think is really unfortunate. I guess it would be okay if the solid wall was there and you had to go through the gate to get in, but the fact that this is now going to be wrought iron and you can see through it, I think it's really it's a detriment to this street. So I would encourage you to really dial in on your accessibility and figure out if that's something that's really required or not, because you are providing a path of travel to a door. This is an existing structure, so there are methods for leaving that alone. So I would encourage you to take another look at that. And I would also encourage you to study bringing people down this side. This, as it seems, yes, it works. It just seems like a bit of an unfortunate occurrence. I think it'd be a lot nicer if everybody can come in either over here or here and make their way down here, and then back. Because right now you've got, as everyone suggested, you have this gate here, and then you're going to come around here, so slide the gate over. But then you've got more paver over here, so you're encouraging people to go that way. So I would encourage you to really study your site circulation and try and make that as nice as possible for everybody, not just the people that will have to go down here. And then other odds and ends, like I'm assuming these are back here now?
Yep, just have to move.
Where do you think they'll end up?
Up on the flat roof of the front building.
Somewhere up here, behind this parapet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you come back, be prepared to demonstrate that those are screened or not visible from across the street. And I guess to weigh in on the change of the elevation of that front building, I think this is nice. I like, it's a very simple building. The mass of it is great. I don't think you need to really hide it behind extra walls and things like that. I think it's a great foil for your landscape design as it is. I mean, I wouldn't try and layer it with more structure. And up front, I mean, there's something sort of a little bit incongruous about having this sort of modern flat eyebrow that cuts across, and then you having these additional sort of leftover parapet details. Feels like it needs to go one way or the other to me. I like the idea. I mean, certainly like the idea that you're talking about steel doors and windows. That would be quite an upgrade for this. And I don't mind the corrugated awnings. I think that can work. So those are my comments. We do have to, even though it's comments only, have to make some sort of a motion with comments. Does somebody want to try and summarize them?
And Mr. Chair, I'd be prepared to make a motion.
Okay.
Number one, really enjoy the upgrades and direction that the project is taking and the sensitivity to plantings and architecture that's suggested here. Second, I would restudy, or exhaust all possibilities that you cannot have your front entry at the front, and just make sure that you've turned over all stones in regards to the ADA in regards to that. If it's not available, I would suggest, as we commented, that the side entry be developed to read more architecturally and alignment-wise to announce both on the ground and in architecture and in alignment that's the primary entry around the building to the back. We would like to see the queen palms in the front, all the queen palms along the front property line be to remain. And in the detailing of the architecture, that the awnings and the flat parapet of the flat roof be softened, maybe wrought iron look, and I don't know how to articulate that any better. Softened, maybe wrought iron look, study your materials. That would be
Contemporary interpretation of wrought iron.
Very creative with it.
Yes, and as you've stated, you're going to be creative with the wrought iron in the front fencing. That would be my motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any discussion with that?
Speaking for you, sir. One board member had brought up the detailing of the parapets to not have the exposed coping, and I don't know if other board members agree with that or not. Versus the plaster.
Versus bringing the plaster up and over.
I like that comment.
Yes.
I'll include that in my motion.
Okay. All right.
Indefinite continuance, 2 weeks?
Let's do indefinite. I'm not sure what the next agenda looks like.
Okay, indefinite continuance. We had a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
I don't think we will have a quorum for the next item.
Yes, I have to step down.
Kevin needs to step down.
Very nice as well.
David, you're headed out. Okay.
Yes, let's do that.
So stepping out? I have to step down for item 4. You give it? So,
We're going to have to continue that one because we don't have a quorum.
So it's 22 Anacapa, we need to continue?
yes, you'll probably have to announce that.
Okay.
No, we don't have a quorum for that item.
Due to lack of quorum, we will have to continue 22 Anacapa Street for 2 weeks.
The 2 weeks? Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
And that is because everyone has to step down?
Yes.
David is
David
involved?
just left, and Kevin has to step down.
I see.
That leaves
Oh,
3 of
David-
us.
David's, meaning he's
Right.
left for the day.
David is gone for the day. That leaves 3 of us. 3 is not a quorum.
About that?
I wish I could have told you, at consent, but we had no idea. It happened all kind of last minute.
So we're just continuing in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
All right. Great.
Sorry. Thank you.
We're okay to go ahead and move to item number 5 time-wise.
Okay. We have everybody, item number 5, 220 Ladera Street. This is a first concept review, comments only. 220 Ladera Street, first concept review, comments only. This is a proposal for an exterior remodel of an existing 43-unit residential complex. The project consists of replacement of all doors and windows, refinishing of stucco, new siding, guardrails, horizontal wood fencing, and new patio enclosures with updated permeable paving. The project also consists of a conversion of an existing storage room to an enclosed bicycle storage area for 24 bicycles. An updated landscape plan is also proposed. Okay, so again, this is first concept review, comments only. Okay, welcome. Introduce yourselves.
Thank you. Elsa Reeder, CSA Architects.
Trevor Wellman from CSA Architects.
Aaron Carroll, landscape architect.
Okay. All right. Please walk us through this.
Okay, so I'd like to start by just giving you a brief overview of what we're here for, and then I'll pass it to Trevor after that. So just for a little bit of project history, this project has been existing since 1970. It's almost 50 years in the community. And the improvements being sought for several reasons, but most importantly to improve the safety and aesthetics of the project and to increase the livability and function of the site for the tenants and to address historical drainage issues that exist on the site. This is a carefully selected scope of work meant to provide efficient improvements while minimizing impacts to tenants. And one of the ways we anticipate improving the safety of the project is to address the fact that the existing railings are getting older and they don't meet the existing code height, etc. The existing storage building that we talked about, converting to a secure covered bike storage will help us get some of the bikes off of the patios that are highly visible right now. And so that's something that is extremely desirable for the owner. And another way we would propose to improve the site is by addressing areas where the existing hardscape is either lifting or sinking, making an uneven walking surface. And so you'll hear more about that from Aaron in just a little bit. The current project aesthetic lacks any distinctive character, so part of this discussion is to propose a clean, contemporary aesthetic that strengthens the existing architecture. And this includes updating the existing materials, which I'll let Trevor tell you about now. I just want you to keep in mind as you listen to the remainder of the presentation that we are here for comments only, but we are looking for clear and consistent direction on our proposed design.
I'll show you the site. If you turn to page PHO, that shows all of our pictures. Our site is highlighted by this bold yellow line. There are 3-story apartment complexes adjacent to the site, along with 2-story apartment complexes and duplexes. And then there's also a complex here that's 2-story and a complex here that's 2-story. As you can see from here, the 3 stories overlook the site of our site. Just to give you a sense of where we are, this is Cliff Drive here, and this is Montecito Street, and you turn left onto Ladera Street, which is a cul-de-sac. And just to be clear, we are making no interior changes, and we are not adjusting the site parking at all. So the exterior of the site is 3-story, definitely 1970s style. There are a large trellis here that we plan to replace with a new trellis that is less massive. As you can see here, these are the existing rails that we plan to replace. They don't meet the current code requirements, so right now they are unsafe for the tenants. Just to go over some of the changes that we are planning to propose. The stucco. Right now the stucco is very texturized and very rough. The picture doesn't really show it, but it's a lot deeper than this, and if possible, we are proposing to create a smooth finish over this and repaint it to a more contemporary light color, whether that be a white or a light gray color. We also plan to replace all of the exterior doors and windows. We're just replacing them like for like, making sure they're more energy efficient compared to the current aluminum windows. And as mentioned before, we're also replacing the existing guardrails, both at the public walkways and at the private patios. If you look at our render here, you can see the private deck areas are more private. Those are in this 1/4-inch square opening rail, and we propose that to be a dark bronze color. And then for the public walkways, we're proposing that to be a 1-inch opening in the same dark bronze color. And we're also proposing to replace the wood shake siding that is in between the existing windows. I have a picture of that for you. It's very old right now, so we're planning to remove these dark wood bands and removing this siding here and replacing with a more contemporary wood siding. Oops. And then for the patio walls right now, they are vertical wood, and we're proposing to replace them with a more contemporary horizontal 2x8 wood. And then if we go back to our photo plan, there's an existing storage building shown here in the picture, and it's shown here on the site plan. We're proposing to turn that into a covered bike area. And we can fit approximately 30 to 32 bikes in there with these freestanding bicycle racks. And we're proposing to make some minor adjustments to the exterior styling of that building. If you turn to page, I think it's, BIK. We're just adding that same 2x8 horizontal siding that you found on the main building to the two elevations that face the property. So we're not making it to the other elevations, which do not show on the inside of the property, just to make everything more cohesive. And then we're also doing an entry trellis. You can see that on our rendering plan. We're planning on having dark bronze aluminum metal posts with aluminum beams, and then having that same contemporary style wood come up here and over, which will cover a mailbox area, giving the mailbox area some shelter. And there's also perforated metal along the top. And that takes our architectural changes to the site. So I'll turn it over to Aaron for the landscape proposals.
So, as far as existing conditions, we've got, there's existing redwoods and pines along, that's off. Redwoods and pines along the north property line, which we will be keeping. There's, I'm sorry. Cut off. This is north. Redwoods and pines on this side. There's the bike parking. An existing oleander hedge, which we're maintaining. Some existing leuphostomon trees, which we're maintaining. Some very large deodar cedars along Ladera, and a large podocarpus there, and a very large deodar cedar in the middle of the project. So no tree removals proposed. The hardscaping, we're trying to clean up. There's some weird grade differences. There's like one step here, one step there, kind of just awkward grade changes throughout the site, which we want to make ADA compliant. So this is all new permeable paver paths. We're thinking of a linear plank paver, hydroflow, so the water would actually drain through the paver. We're trying to keep the project Tier 2 stormwater. Over on the south side, we're going to remove the existing retaining wall, gain a little extra walking width, and lessen the slope here because it's very severe, make it more plantable. So this would be a new stucco retaining wall, about 3 feet, it would vary in height. In the middle of the project, we are proposing a dry stream bed that would handle drainage. It's very flat throughout these courtyards, and we're trying to improve the drainage situation throughout the site.
I have to, yeah, there you go. Very close.
This microphone keeps turning
Do you
off.
want to move to this one?
Turned off by itself. Okay. Out in the front, Trevor mentioned the wood slat fence, and that would sort of have some zigzagging to it, so it's not going to be a straight shot. That would add some interest. A little entry kiosk here where you could have rental forms, flyers, whatever there, and a little courtyard, a new bench there to replace an existing bench. The entry trellis is in this area. And
can you point it out for us?
Yeah, it's dashed in. It's kind of light on the landscape plan, but there's a post there.
Post, okay.
there, so about there.
Okay.
There's the mailboxes. So adding some new tree planters along the side, the parking lots. Probably a bottle tree there, which would really help with this parking lot situation where there's no parking lot trees along this edge currently. The interior courtyard, we're proposing some liquid ambers, fruitless sweet gums. Out here, some ginkgos. This is a camphor tree. Some succulents out along the street. Some gravel mulch areas through here. And I can kind of get into the nitty-gritty of the planting if you want, but important tree here is there's a really, it's very exposed here to the building adjacent, and so these would be sweet shade trees to offer some screening there. So that's kind of the landscape plan in summary. The whole site would be gated. So a pedestrian gate here, here, and here.
Okay.
There's no driveway gate though.
Do you want to add anything else?
That's it.
Okay. We'll open it up for public comments. Seeing nobody, we'll close public comment and move on to questions. Howard, would you like to start?
A lot of information here. On the landscape, I noticed that there is an existing masonry wall that is kind of an entry feature into this interior courtyard, and then you're proposing a new wall on the other side. Is that true, or
Correct. So
new plaster masonry wall? Yeah.
So this wall is about 2 feet high, 2.5 feet high.
Existing masonry.
Existing. So that side's existing to remain. We'd replaster it, and that would be a new plaster wall. So we'd have that symmetry as you enter.
So you're going to plaster the masonry wall?
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Go back here to some of the other things. You know, I don't think I have a lot of questions because your presentation was pretty good.
Okay.
You're done.
That was it.
I'm done.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
I don't have any questions either. I think it's a very good presentation, and I believe I understand what you're trying to do and reserve some comments for comments.
Okay. Richard?
Yeah, so I noticed there's a bike parking that it's a great idea to get the bikes back there, but it seems to be landlocked by these two adjacent parking spaces. How do you get access for your bikers to get into that baby?
Or to get over there. Wow. So as you can see, the parking spot here ends about like there. And currently there's a 3-foot door at the corner of here, so we would just be replacing that door to make sure it's ADA friendly.
Okay, so you sneak by that way. So there's a way in. Okay.
Yeah, there's a way
Very
in.
good. Then is there any proposal to change the roofing? What's the roofing, present roofing, and is it?
The present roofing is a kind of red color. You can see it on our
Yes.
photo page.
What is it? Asphalt?
Yes, it's asphalt, and it was not replaced too. It was replaced not too recently, so we're planning to keep that.
So all of the eaves, columns, fascias on the balconies are dark stained wood, and those will be maintained and.
They're dark stained wood right now, and we're planning to just paint them a different color. Because right now they're not really stained a color, they're more painted.
Yes.
So we're just going to repaint those.
So what color is that you're?
We want to match it with whatever we use for the new 2x8 siding. We want to match that color with the rest of the.
So this would be a
fascia.
clear stain, and then you would solid stain the others to bring it up a bit lighter and lighter brown or red brown.
Yeah, whatever color we do choose. We want a light to dark contrast right now, so we're looking at a more medium color for that siding.
Or the siding, and therefore also the wood, all the wood. And
Yes,
so
for
forth.
all
Okay.
of the rest of the wood as well.
So it'll be lightened up, and the bottom line is it'll be lightened up a bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yes.
And then there's this. Are you going to maintain this stucco soffit? Is that to be maintained?
For the stucco soffit, we're keeping that. We're just painting a darker color. Because right now it's a light color, and we think it would be better with a darker color there.
Okay.
Like a dark gray color.
I noticed that. Are you concerned about having these horizontal siding have something to land into?
We're planning to have an end finish on there, but we're not exactly sure if that's going to be metal or wood quite yet.
So
we're
it'll-
still in the early development phase.
So this plane is not recessed enough to dead end the horizontal siding into the wall.
We're not entirely sure about that just yet, but we are working on that part of this design.
All right. I think that's it.
Okay. Since we have this photo up here, these lovely lights, are you planning on doing anything with these?
Yes, both site lighting and building exterior lighting will be addressed. We did not bring cut sheets today because we wanted to get a general feel of support or not here at this meeting before we went too far in our design.
Okay.
The light fixture specified on the landscape plan is a small Bega bollard.
I see something, yeah, there's a bollard here. Okay. And then these other little elements like this bench, that's new, that is proposed, or is that just part of the rendering?
That bench exists now. The finish of it may be updated, but I'm not thinking that's actually part of the plan to update the bench.
Yeah, we wanted to remove and replace it in the same location.
Okay, remove and replace.
Do you have a bigger photo of this existing area somewhere?
We have the photo board. The size of the image that we brought today is only what we have with us. We can enlarge that for you and bring it back bigger if you'd like to see that in a bigger capacity.
Where is that?
Can you point to the project entry?
The closest one.
M and L? Are those the ones?
Those are in the interior courtyard.
Mhm.
I did not supply that exact view with this submittal set, so we can do that in the future if you would like.
They might be the most. Right.
So there's a bench right there. Okay. Okay. How, I'm familiar, definitely driven down this many times. I'm familiar with this building. How, I guess this is 3 stories from memory, or it's up on, sort of perched up high. This is 3 stories, so visibility-wise, you can kind of really only see it for this corner from Cliff Drive. Is that correct?
Correct. You can only see, basically from over here, you can only really see the roofs unless you like really turn your head and like try to look at the site.
Okay.
But if you're not familiar with the site, you're not going to notice it.
Okay. Okay, let's go into comments. Howard.
So I have one little question remaining.
Okay.
I notice on the, what is it that I was looking at? The rendering. Yeah. Are you proposing to clad the columns that now support the, did you talk about this? These columns, are they wrapped or are they?
Oh, we're just repainting them.
So those are, what are they now? They're steel?
They're a dark wood, dark painted wood.
Okay, so they're posts, wood posts, and they're painted dark, and you're
Yeah.
going to paint them lighter.
A lighter, yes.
So, comments. What I like about this project is the consistent way in which you handle materials and colors throughout a project which has an aesthetic, whatever it is, from the 60s or 70s. Is that right?
Yes, 70s.
And, it's not Santa Barbara. And it's in an area where there are other buildings that are not Santa Barbara. I'm kind of struggling with the comment here because the overall impact is effective. You've chosen materials that are dark and subtle and that contrast nicely with your gray walls. Is it gray? Is that what it's going to be? Some kind of a gray? I think the landscaping. Again, this is not my purview, but seems to be a mixture of desert and West Coast marine deciduous kind of a landscaping. It's a little mixture of the two. I don't know if that's mixed signals or what, but it seems like the exterior is more of the desert landscape and the interior is more of the other landscape. I guess just one comment is that it would be nice if these walls, the site walls, would be of a natural material rather than a redundant texture, color, surface of the building colors. It's just one thing that strikes me a little bit. And you mentioned that the doors and windows are going to be replaced. I assume that they are now anodized aluminum, single glazed, and you're going to remove them and replace them with what?
They are, right now they're going to be vinyl with the standard code requirements for glazing.
So I would without knowing what that's going to look like, I would be concerned whether vinyl door windows, is that doors as well?
Yes,
Frames?
the sliding doors.
Sliding. What about front doors?
The front doors would be, I think, a fiberglass material by Therma-Tru.
So I would have maybe some curiosity about how those. I'm not sure I'm going to buy into the vinyl windows and doors for this project, but I would like to see how your proposal for the doors and windows, how you're proposing to treat them to create interest and surface development, and also is there any way you can avoid what did you call the material of the front doors?
Fiberglass.
Fiberglass. I mean, if there's any way to get away from fiberglass, I would. Those are my comments at the moment, and they're not mature comments, but
I didn't find them childish.
no, they're a little petty, that's all.
I think you're giving them good comments. They're looking for just a direction if they're on track or not. So I think
My general impression and the direction they're taking is it's good direction. I think that if they pursue this, that there'll be a nice project. Yes.
Okay. Bob.
Okay. Howard alluded to the style of the building not being Santa Barbara. The original building wasn't really much Santa Barbara either. It was contemporary for its time, and I like the contemporary improvements that you've made that 50 years from now, another owner will likely want to change, maybe sooner. But I think you've done a nice job with it. Do have a couple of comments with regard to the fiberglass doors. I'd like to see what those look like, but acknowledging the fact that this is student housing, you probably need really sturdy materials, so that may be the best way to go. The horizontal fence material, we see it all over town now, and the older examples of it that I've seen are sagging. So when you detail that, just make sure that you're supporting those horizontal timbers or boards often enough so that they don't end up sagging and falling apart. May we turn to the landscape plan, please? This is a very nicely done landscape plan. It's clear and obviously it takes some time to read because it's small scale and complex, but it is nicely done. I would suggest that you, even though this is fairly dense along here, maybe thicken it up a little bit more with a few more trees just to get yourselves a nice solid edge there, because you don't have any views this way over here. Might as well just have a nice bank of foliage. I think between the building, these two buildings and the parking, not sure why you couldn't do more of these pop-outs and add more trees. This is really kind of bare, and again, the views from these buildings are of parking, so why not give these people a view of foliage instead? And just in deference to everybody on this board, including me, who purports to know plants, you got a lot of plants on this list. It would be helpful to have plant images so that everybody on the board can see what you're proposing. If these are such as lists, narrow them down to the plants that you really want to use, so that you don't waste a lot of time and paper on plant images. But I think the images are important for everybody on the board. And with regard to Howard's comment about the eclecticism of the plant palette, I think the images will help explain that. You do have an interesting mix of plant materials. I'm not sure that they all, in my opinion, would go well together. So you might want to think about that and maybe focus more on a theme and narrow down the plant list to, plants that support that theme. But I think it's a very nice landscape plan, and I think it's a very nice project overall. So I could support it.
Okay. You can support the direction.
As long as it continues to go in the same direction. Yes.
Okay. Richard?
Yes, I can support the direction also. I think it's sensitively and wisely, wise upgrades. So I am reduced to only a few minor comments. I think that when you look at the rendering and the elevations, this expanse of netting, the infills for balconies, both in the public and the private, seem to be, I think they could really, be improved by some intermediate horizontal railings of some sort to play off of your horizontals that you've already got. It just,
you mean like a break?
Yeah, like
a gap.
Like a break or a gap, or three sections of it horizontal. I think that, especially when you get over to those elevations that are completely, I can't turn. Next one. Next one. Yeah, here. That's really, I think there has to be really something more there because it's, especially from the street view, the glimpse you get, you see these. So I would suggest some kind of detailing there. And just a minor thing that perhaps when you consider, where's that one image, that maybe this becomes a different color, so that this all reads as, one element. And those are my two comments.
Okay, great.
You see that?
No. I agree that the project's moving in a good direction. I agree that some of the mesh, the metal wire mesh, could be reduced. It's a little prison-like, especially in this area, but I think you can have some fun with it and get creative to break that up a little bit. So anytime there's this sort of relatively modern rework, the detailing is really important. Making sure corners are captured properly, wood siding is capped, because you're showing it this way with the siding coming in and butting into a stucco molding of some sort, probably. That's the intent. The contractor's probably going to want to do it differently, so you got to make sure that that's totally figured out. And so I would encourage you to really study those as you move forward. I want to applaud the owner for going to this effort to upgrade the property and make it something that's an example, hopefully, for the surrounding properties. So those are my comments. So this is comments only. We do need a little list of comments to move forward with and a motion.
Before you do that, may I ask one quick question?
Sure.
Okay. Speaking to this horizontal siding termination, would the board have any interest in a rain screen application, or is that something you'd rather lean away from?
Depends on
screen?
Rain screen?
Rain screen,
Where
not familiar with that.
essentially projected off the building by a couple of inches?
Depends on how you resolve the
Okay.
transitions.
Okay.
I think your intent is to have these sort of recessed into the stucco almost.
It is, but if we get to a place, like you said, where detailing that becomes problematic, I was just trying to understand whether or not you'd be open to seeing a rain screen application.
So there'd be a change of plane.
Yes.
You'd be out instead of in.
Correct.
that would be here, right?
Yes.
I think that would be fine. I mean, just the concept of that.
Yeah, depends on how it's handled. But.
Detailed. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Does someone want to put a little motion together? I'd suggest a indefinite continuance with the following list.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion for indefinite continuance with the following comments: that the board supports the general direction of appreciates and supports the general directions of the upgrades. That it is in sensitivity to the existing building and yet not overly stark and hard and modern. That as far as the site plan, I think there was only one comment about adding more dense line of trees along the south.
And between the buildings and the parking lot.
Oh, yes, on the south property line adjacent to the three-story neighboring apartments, and find more pockets and more frequent trees between the parking lot and the building itself.
There's a comment about the compatibility of the two landscapes, or the mix of plants, isn't it?
Settle on a landscape theme that is perhaps less eclectic.
I understand the comment.
You get that?
Aaron knows what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I hope.
These two talk.
Let's see that the mesh railings suggest being restudied to bring more interest, more play, more cut-ups, to make them more interesting and add character to the building. And suggest that the vertical short walls between the pairs of windows be colored in a different color to have those pairs of windows read as one unit. And the board will look forward to finely crafted details given the contemporary nature of the proposal.
Do you want to make a comment about the fiberglass front doors and the and
doors and
a
windows.
study of the vinyl windows and doors
The
and
board
windows?
holds their support of those materials for windows and doors until actual samples are seen and reviewed.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Capture all that. Okay, we have one second.
I just did.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for a very clear presentation.
Yes.
Helps.
Just need to keep one set if you want to take the other one.
Sure.
Otherwise it's like-
Okay. Are we all here for item 6?
I'm here.
Okay. Right, all here? No one's ducking out?
No.
Okay.
I can't come up with
Not right now. Okay, 1108 Olive Street.
How y'all doing?
Good. Hi there. This is a first concept review, comments only for a 4-unit residential project to be developed using the AUD program. Project consists of the demolition of all structures on site and the construction of 2 two-story duplexes. Unit mix will include 3 two-bedroom and 1 studio apartments, ranging in size from 315 to 1,128 square feet with an average size of 877 square feet. The proposed density on this 72 square foot lot is 25 dwelling units per acre on a parcel with a general plan use designation of medium-high density, which allows for 15 to 27 dwelling units per acre. Also proposed are 4 covered parking spaces and changes to the on-site landscaping. Okay. Concept review, comments only. Yep.
Mr. Chair, just before we begin the presentation, I just wanted to make an announcement that this project is subject to the infill guidelines, which you should all have a copy of. And if you require any of the supplemental materials to better understand the project, you might want to do so at this meeting. And then we've also, the urban historian has prepared a little photo display of the surrounding neighborhood for your reference.
Thank you. Richard, why don't you start with that? Alrighty. Why don't you introduce yourselves and walk us
Yeah, how
through
you
the
doing?
project?
Brian Pollard, architect. The owner, Andre Schneider.
You need to
We need to come in
speak
here.
into the mic.
Okay. So we were here just about a year ago, 2017. We had a project that went in front of you, and we got approval on it, which was very exciting for us. But at this point, it was a you might remember there was 2 of you, I believe, Bob. You might, and I know Richard wasn't here, but it was a condominium, two units condominium project, and this I think would just to show you what the footprint of that approved project was basically there was a 2-story unit A and then a 2-story unit B that kind of came across these these 4 car garages. So anyway, we've since then decided, Andre, his wife, and some of his some people that he's been speaking to, they have decided to go with the AUD, and so we went into sketching some ideas up with this project that's in front of you now. So I think the first thing is to orient you to the project. One of the things that was recommended the last time was the orientation to provide all the 2-story structures, and that's in green. Is that correct?
The one in green.
So I thought I'd just bring those along so that we can kind of familiarize ourselves with the neighborhood. The location of the, well, actually, can I orient this way? I just am better. I'll let you guys see backwards. So basically, this is the site here in red, and that's the Santa Barbara High School. That
Big hole in the ground.
stadium, and that. Right. So these, this is the street here, Figueroa, Olive Street, and so you can see where all the 2 stories are. There's a 2-story right next door, kind of a condo project that reaches across there, and so I'll just pull out the photographs. Do you want to just lay it over there?
Sure.
Okay. Actually, I'd like to kind of see, because it kind of gives you the orientation here. Maybe if we bring that over like this. There's that. Okay. So, over here. This is a project. This is what the existing residence here. That's just a flat front at the 20-foot setback. That is what's existing. And then this is the neighboring property, which is right here. So we're looking straight at that. Number 2, here is the existing property. Basically, you can see we're proposing that to be removed. And so then, basically, here's the corner property here. This is looking right next door. You can kind of see where the property is located now, where the existing home is. 4 is looking down the street. You get that, where you're looking down, or up Olive Street. So you can see that neighboring property, and then this other, down the street on this side of it. And then we've got another direction here, which is 5, which is coming up the other way. So we're looking back at this project at the corner, Figueroa. This is here is looking from Figueroa straight at this corner house. So here's the corner house. This is the garage behind it. Okay, and then, where do we go? Okay, so this here is, what number is that, 7? So 7 is this corner. So looking up Olive at this corner here, Figueroa, up Olive. And then here is basically across the street. We're just looking, what number is that, 8? So the 8 is kind of coming back from those, you see that arrow there? It's coming back toward Figueroa a little bit, but on the opposite side of the street. And then 9 is this little house here that's right behind Andre's property, right back in this corner. Okay, does that help everybody?
And this, what's that?
Andre, can you help me out with that? For me,
That's the house across the street.
Oh, okay.
where's it? Can you point that out again?
This roof mass right here.
Oh, no, that's the back of.
That's the back of your house.
That's the back of your house. Yeah, exactly.
It would have to be, yes.
Yeah.
Because we're looking at Sue's.
You're basically looking up and then seeing the back of his home
Yeah,
right
that's the
there.
back of the existing house.
Right there.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
if we can just have, excuse me, if we could have you refrain from speaking until you come up for public comment.
This, that tower here, or this thing and this, that's the
Mark
neighboring, that's that greenhouse here. So there, the photo is taken across here. You're seeing these two elements. That is on his neighboring property.
Okay.
Other side of that.
Okay.
Does that help? Okay, so that's orientation. Orientation. All right. So, next part of this is that we basically got a civil engineer involved with this early on because of primarily the last project was there was a little bit of a dip, so we had to look at pump. This kind of came down in the back. Is everybody oriented here? This is that picture that we were taking, that was taken over there on Figueroa. This is the corner house, Figueroa here, corner. And this is up Olive. This is the house that is next to it. So basically, we were going to have to pump all the drainage up to the street. So we went to a civil engineer, Andre, both of us looked at what we could do to get gravity to take care of that. So we've basically got this civil worked out very nicely so that we can actually get work that part of it through to be able to make sure that that aspect of it could be figured out. So just wanted to show you that. That's basically a site plan of this, or the civil, and we can get back to any kind of questions you might have. And then this is basically the site plan showing the neighboring properties. But basically what we're doing is that we've got a fourplex, and there is the Unit A is down below. I go to that. Let's go to the floor plan. Here's the site. Existing driveway apron here. We're going to create a ribbon driveway along the entry part of this. But basically, let's use this site plan to show you how this Unit A works out. Unit A is down here. We've also looked at basically everything being built around the bedrooms being 12 by 12. I feel like that is an appropriate size for a king size, a queen, something that somebody can actually live comfortably and not really go smaller than that. And anyway, we were driving along the idea of how these things were going to be laid out. So all the bedrooms, just FYI, is that they are 12 by 12 and the standard 8 by 5 bathrooms. So we've got one unit down below, and we've got a upper unit. The unit below is 170 square feet, this area here, 170.
170?
1,070.
Oh, yeah, 1,070, that would count. And another zero there. 1,070 down here, 995 upstairs, okay, for this duplex. And then the back unit, it's a micro unit. You know, it's one of the four, but this is kind of a little studio space. So it's 315 square feet right here, okay? And we've got open yard. We've met the open yard requirement for 100 square feet over, which I think is at least moving in the right direction. So here's the idea of laying this thing out. So you can see this is a double size. This is a queen. So you can see with end tables. So I'm letting the furnishings kind of drive the size of this thing. And, you know, that's just how a lot of us design. But this is an 8 by 8 sectional. So everything is kind of built around, actually it's a 9 by 8. And so here's where the layouts, a little bit more in detail, how they work out. This is the upstairs units that you haven't seen yet. So this is above. This is the upper B, which is 995. So 12 by 12, 12 by. We did get a 12 by 12, 12 by 12. The kitchen, you can see the sectional here. Got a little area where they can have a little eating area because it's, you know, dining is kind of tough around here. So it's got a little peninsula there for dining, but, you know, a comfortable galley kitchen. And then in this unit in the back, we're able to you kind of come up, we kind of played with both sides of where that living could be. It was a tough play because what we got these terraces, because the second story needs to have a outdoor space. So this kind of works well architecturally, as you'll see shortly. But you come up this, find this living, there's a bedroom here with a bath that is shared, you know, public bath, basically, a little galley kitchen, washer and dryer. Then you got this master. Basically, it worked out to be this master in the back area. So there is kind of the layout. Now, what I'd like to do because I spent all day doing this. This is the CAD version, but this sheet I've got exactly like this that I went and sketched over. So if I could bring that one forward. And just, it's all got the same notes and everything, but basically it really kind of helps this thing come alive.
This is the previous project?
This is the same project.
Same project.
Same sheet, everything just rendered.
I see. Oh, rendered.
So this is basically the architecture in which we're going after. Would like to show you. Oh man, I had it earlier. There it is. Okay. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So this is, I wanted to give you just real quick a little inspiration of this house, the structure that is on Mitchell Terrena and Chapala. It's a George Washington Smith that I've always liked, but this is kind of the detail we're going for on the eave and the rake condition. So we like that simple little double square there. This is just some of the, you can see that detail there. So it's real simple. So I just always have loved that building. And just we're looking towards that. If you remember the last project, Andre's a big George Washington Smith fan, and we really worked that. And we aren't done giving maybe some elegant details with that, but you can get a sense of the direction that we're going with it. Simple Spanish revival style, tried to get some animation with the forms, a 4x12 roof. We're going to have a two-piece style. None of this S-tile stuff. We're going to double up the starters or triple or whatever to give that nice, maybe in certain areas, but give it really a old world look. Little, whitewash plaster, the iron. We've got a little bit of iron work here, so I think that's. And then we got the timber posts, I think, which will really bring some really nice material and texture to it. The corbels along here are also something that I think could be a nice little detail, and it allows for some of the nice touches that we're trying to accomplish, but in a simple form. The plates, we basically got a 9-foot plate down below, and then an 8'6" plate on the second floor. And so the other thing was just in conclusion is that this front rendering, this is looking from Olive. This is your street view. This is basically what was approved the last time, and we kind of this was the here we go. This was the front of the project previously. So naturally, it was a different kind of arrangement, different deal. But I was really trying to accomplish a similar thing. This little swoop here for this garden wall courtyard that we've got for the private open space. I think some great landscaping that can happen with that. So it's basically in that realm of it. As you can see too, does that show? This gray area is basically that unit in back. So it's not coming out. It's basically in line. So this is beyond. And then I would say, just to finish this one, is we can go to the other elevations. You guys can flip through it. They're not rendered, but this is the side of this. This is an 8-foot existing fence that is on the neighbor's property, which is the neighbor on the, north side, north. That's where the condo is over there, not the corner, not toward Figueroa, the other one. So there's an 8-foot fence, and it's all landscaped, and it's got vines going on, and I mean that's what this elevation is, and that's what 6 feet from the property line is where these buildings start up. All right, and we do have the garages in the 3 feet into the side yard setback, which is allowed if I believe that maybe you guys agree to it. But so here is just quickly the landscape. The landscape architect is not available, but you can kind of see where we've got a street tree that exists.
That's the existing tree.
Existing street tree. These are the two trees that are being proposed. Bob, you might, anyway, an oak tree, and this one be an oak tree, and this one being an existing sidewalk. This one being, I don't know. But there is some kind of decorative tree there. So the other way is the other thing that we really worked on and recognized the path of travel. And so we have this ribbon driveway, and then we are setting up a pattern change that allows for some direction to be able to get to the back units. And so we're basically approaching that That way, this is the entrance. You kind of come into this, and then you turn to the left for this lower level, and then you come back into the project with this patterned, textured paving to be able to come into this, the rest of the project. And so you can see this is kind of a nice little congregating area, large open space. We meet all our private areas. This is for the micro unit down below. We've got some nice large trees here that can do some screening for us there. And then we've got some vines and things that are happening. We've got enough of a depth there against the property line to be able to kind of landscape that edge nicely. And then we've got some trees also, as you can see, proposed here into this area to be able to do some nice screening for this north side. So that's pretty much, I think, pretty much it. Do you think of anything else?
Okay, well, why don't you just quickly take us through the setbacks, especially on the front. Looks like you've gone to some effort to work on that.
Yeah, the setbacks are 10. It's a 20-foot setback. Well, let me get to my site plan. Extend it a little better. So here's our setbacks. We've got 10-foot. Oh, one thing I would like to bring up. This is really important. This area here. That's the existing residence. All right, that's that thing that just sits right there at the same face as what is being proposed. It's going away. So that I want to make sure that you're aware of. So we've got a 10-foot setback, which is required to have this to be able to get our open yard. Well, that's the 10 feet for the open yard requirement, and you got to have a minimum of 10 feet for the open yard requirement. So that sets this thing back to 20, basically where the existing face of the home is right now. Mm-hmm. This dash line is the upper level, so we're shoving that back.
And what's the required setback for the structure?
Front yard setback for the zone.
I think it's 10. At 10. 20?
From the front the front yard setback is 10?
Can you? Would you know?
20 sounds more
I don't have the ordinance, but I believe for structures, first and second stories, I think it's 10, and then anything higher than that would be 20. But I can go grab an ordinance and verify.
In this zone.
I'll go grab an ordinance. I'll
Well,
bring it back.
he's not proposing to put anything closer than that, so
Yeah.
just curious.
Yeah. So basically, then we've got 6 on the interiors and 6 in the back. And
you're right on the back here.
We're right on the back there, and then we kick in 4 feet to really accommodate. Well, it gives some relief on that elevation, but also it offers that private yard for that little corner there. I think it's going to be a great. Well, and then we are coming in, which is kind of allowed 3 feet into the side yard interior, and that kind of allows a little bit more breathing room for this to kind of move forward and this turnaround area to happen.
Okay.
And and we've had the transportation take a look at it, and they're good with it.
Mr. Chair, in the RM zone, the first and second stories have a front setback of 10 feet, and portions of structures above a second story have a 20-foot front setback.
Correct. Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
It does.
Okay. We have some public comment, so I'll ask you guys to take a seat there in the front row. And I will ask Sue Jackson to come on up.
Hang on to that thing.
Scooch it.
I'm Sue Jackson.
there.
Andre's.
Let's move this over here.
I'm Sue Jackson. I'm Andre's neighbor. I'm behind him, so we share a common property line. I have some specific concerns. One primarily has to do with water drainage onto my property. At our conjoining property line, my property is 3 to 4 feet below his. That's the area that my handicap ramp is situated on, and it runs the length of the house to allow me to get from the sidewalk into the back of my house.
And you're
I'm 515 East Figueroa, so I'm around the corner of the second
right here,
house.
I believe, right? Okay.
So it's a primary concern in terms of rain, also to do with that. From the street, the length of Andre's property is a significant drop in elevation continuing down, and then it's another 3 to 4 feet down where my property is.
And that's right here.
Yes.
If I recall, your concern was here.
So I'm concerned about flooding out of my cellar, flooding out below my house. That's where my hot water heater is, and being able to get in and out of my house. I wasn't sure if these folks said that the setback of the unit in the back was 4 feet or 6 feet from my property.
6 feet.
And I heard that the studio is 315 square feet, and didn't understand if that was a below unit or an above unit.
I believe that's on the first level.
And then the second unit is an additional,
It's a separate unit. Yes.
900.
Are you asking for the size?
yes.
You know offhand what the size of that unit D?
This right here tells you. Those are the square
Right,
footages
okay.
of the units.
Thanks.
1128.
That's my bedroom, right on the other side. I'm there a lot, so I'm concerned. I know that there's a degree in terms of privacy and views that you folks can get involved with. But I spend a lot of time there. I've been in the house for 38 years, became handicapped. Getting in and out of the house is important, but being in my bedroom and being out in my little back garden outside my bedroom and having some sun, some light, some privacy is really important to me.
Okay.
So in terms of balconies or windows opening above there, I'm hoping that those considerations can be accommodated.
Okay. Thank you very much. Right, and then we have Catherine.
Hi.
Hi there. We have
Catherine Denlinger.
2 minutes.
I live at 1102, so if you could just pull up this slide that shows our house. There's actually not a retaining wall that goes the whole way. Right now, there's just a small retaining wall at the front.
Yep.
Yeah, just this bit. And it's an old cement building. So right now, his garage goes right in here, and so our bedrooms are here and here. So I have a concern with the traffic of cars going through here, and also it would be nicer for us if it was flipped the other way so that his driveway lines up with the two apartments
These two.
over here. Yeah, that would be ideal for us, and our garage is here. And so there's also the same sort of situation with Sue's property, Sue Jackson's property, where this is lower. So we're concerned with drainage and just having space behind there. That's my main concern. And I wasn't quite aware that he could build that many units. I didn't realize it was multifamily, right?
The AUD ordinance.
Is that what brings it in? Because we're R3, does that make us sit in RM now as well?
Well, it's a multifamily zone.
It is, it's
already.
changed then,
And then there's the AUD ordinance on top of that, which allows for,
so it just seems pretty dense to us, so that's my concern.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And then next we have Lucia.
I'm
Hi there.
Lucia Davis, and I'm at 508 East Figueroa, and I'm across the street from Kathy.
So you're,
I'm on the corner of Figueroa and Olive, and my concern is, again, kind of the density. There are some two-story places, as they pointed out, but what wasn't really apparent is most of those are on the opposite side of the street, and they are far back on the property. These are actually, this is the 1100 block of Olive, and this two-story is a one-person, one-family house, and it's set back. And there, and the Winkies, which is next door to them, the front unit is one story, the back unit is two-story. And then the next block, the 1000 block, which we're in, there are no two-story except for one way back behind one of these single-story and the very last two places at Carrillo. So virtually, it's a single-story, single-family neighborhood, and now it's going to be two stories with balconies that peer over, and density of the minimum of four cars, but from my observation of an apartment building that's on the other side of the 1000 block of Olive, nobody has one car, so there's already a huge parking situation with all the extra cars from that apartment building, and now we're going to have four more possibly cars. So that's my concern.
okay, thank you. And we did receive a letter from Ryan Gold. They own a duplex at 436 East Anapamu and 1129 Olive Street. He is concerned about parking and has similar concerns that more than four cars will come with these four units. So he is in opposition to the project due to the number of parking spaces. Okay. If anyone, is there anyone else wishing to speak on this project in the public? Okay, we'll close public comment. Move back here, and let's start with some questions. Richard, why don't you start?
So, how you're changing the grading to naturally flow from back to front. How high is the grading going to be increased from the existing grade to the new grade? How high are you going?
Well, there's an existing retaining wall that's like 2 feet from the neighboring property back here. And then we're adding, I think, there's another 2 feet to be able to, move this water. Is it
12 inches?
Oh, 12 inches.
It's coming out 12 inches, and another 6 for the slab of the rear unit. I believe that's what we.
Here's the, you can see this has been surveyed. Okay, so basically top of wall 75 and then 72, 8. So that's about, that's less than.
There's 69, 68 here and 72, 82 here.
Okay, so yeah, so there you go. So this is that existing wall, the 72, 82. It's top of wall. That's what exists right there. And then we're at top of wall here, 75.5. So a little less than 3 feet, about 2'8" at that corner that we had to come up.
Total wall height is about 6 feet.
Right.
Here down to grade.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the-
5.
So on the grade
But once-
on the other
yeah.
side of the wall comes up 3 feet,
30 inches
30 inches. Okay.
at the highest point.
Mhm.
And I just measured it the other day.
Okay. There was mention of the adjacent northeast property. Do you know the relative setback of their second story as opposed to yours? So here's your second story here,
Right.
and do you know where their second story is?
No, their second story is back here somewhere. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, we're back here at our second.
Your second story is
Yeah,
where?
I'll show you. Let's get that so that you can understand that. There is our second story, right along here.
And where
This
is-
is their,
That's their second story?
do you know?
Okay.
Yeah, but basically this
I
is-
think I'll
this
have
is
a
our
comment
second.
in regards to
Okay.
that. Okay.
This right now exists as basically a 2-story unit right now. Existing residences, like that big face, it's 2
Mhm.
feet. So we've really pushed that back
Mhm.
to start that second story portion.
Then there was an out-of-the-box comment from the community, from public, about flipping the whole thing and having the drive on the other side. What are the pluses and minuses of that?
Well, I would say that it'd be a kind of a surprise to me that's so to me it'd be a surprise to have that over there but it works really well. We've played with this site many times, so we're not really interested. We're kind of proposing what it is right now, so
Mhm.
that's kind of what we've gone with. And I mean,
Oh.
unless you say that we would look at that, there's some things that are really, this is the view.
I get it.
These are the outdoor balconies. There's this space here. It's the breeze off the ocean. There's that principle behind it. There's kind of the growies out here. It's really the nice orientation that this layout offers.
And is there not the mass of this against the mass of this two-story over here?
No,
A plus?
it's kind of this mass here. This is where they park. They come in here, this driveway, they park in. See where they're parking in? So this comes in here.
Okay.
Right. And then these.
All right. That's all my questions.
Okay. Bob?
We'll call this the south property line.
Thank you.
What are you proposing in terms of screening along here for these neighbors?
Yeah, let's go.
Wood fence?
These it's that right
Okay.
there.
Pretty much low shrubs. Okay.
And then we've got this tree, and this tree is kind of a vertical canopy tree.
Okay.
here.
Can we go back to the architecture? Oh, actually, this will work.
Okay, great.
As pretty as this is, this is kind of disturbing, this stark facade as this one as well. Is there any reason why you couldn't hip that roof to match the other end?
Yeah.
You know, and this one as well, just to bring down the total mass. Okay. That's all I have in terms of questions.
Okay, I need a little help here. I'm looking at the floor plans, and not the floor plans. I'm looking at the elevations.
Okay.
And on sheet A6 and A7. And I see a drawing that says west front duplex elevation. And then I see a west rear duplex elevation.
Okay, that's this one here. Okay.
Right. So, but I'm actually thinking that the west is really the east. And that the next page is in fact the opposite.
Yeah, that actually is, if we're taking that south.
The street is the east side of the east
This is
elevation.
when you come around and you look at the
Right.
face, when you drive in, that's that face. This is the balcony
No,
that looks out over
on
the driveway.
A6, the one I'm looking at here, isn't, this is the east elevation of the
east.
rear duplex.
I think it's the south elevation.
Well, if you called,
East
oh, I
is-
see what you're
East
saying.
is facing the street.
No, yes, because you named the south property line.
This is I'm sure you're right. This is that elevation.
So that's the east.
So this would
So
be.
we'd want to change that name there to east.
Yes.
And then the one next to it is in fact also the east of the
Yeah,
front duplex, okay? So then that means that this piece here is correct, the south, because that's facing the property line that he just mentioned. So just getting back here to the next page, same thing applies. So this is now the west of the front elevation with the little stair that goes up at the rear of the house. That's the elevation of that stair. And then this one here is the west rear duplex elevation.
So those are right.
Yeah, yeah, well, I think it's, you want rear instead of, I think it's west rear
Oh,
and west
Excuse me.
front. They're just the opposite,
Yes.
around, they're opposite. So the reason I needed to know, and then of course the elevation on the south, on the bottom is not the south, but the north elevation. So we are getting somewhere now. Okay. So then I'm looking here at the west rear elevation. Excuse me, the west rear duplex elevation.
yes.
And I'm looking at a piece that projects out with a little, and I'm looking at a line here, yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
But I'm really interested in seeing that line in the floor plan. And I don't see it in the floor plan.
Well, I think it's in there, but you've got me on the west and the east and the south, so, but let me show you what I did. I was trying to, I recognized that, but if you go to that second floor.
Right. So my understanding of the second floor is you're coming in down below here into a little stair hall. And you're going up 2 steps to a landing.
Yes.
And you're going up a long flight of steps up into the second floor. So you have a long piece of building here, and then you have step back here, but I think I'd like to know what happens upstairs.
This
Because-
is where that little,
Okay, so,
see that,
oh, that little line there.
that's as thin as my CAD line.
That is a little 2-inch reveal.
Right, I was trying to
I understand.
look at
I
that,
totally
so I
understand.
did.
I totally understand.
That's where it came from.
Subtle.
Very, right.
Okay, get it.
Yes.
So I understand the drawings now. Those are all my questions.
Okay, that's it? All right. So for everybody's benefit, let's just walk very quickly around the building, very quickly, and talk about privacy concerns with adjacent neighbors. So it might be best to do that on the site plan. perhaps, or this plan. So we heard concerns from the neighbors, particularly in this area. There's bedroom windows. They're concerned about people driving by. There's probably some concerns about privacy, impacts to privacy on the balcony above, maybe the balcony over here. Do you have a sense about, or photos or anything like that, that you can describe possible impacts, and or have you done something in the landscape design to solve those issues? And then coming around here, the last project we had concerns about privacy with this neighbor. It looks like you've done a good job about isolating windows. Are these up high? Or are they sort of picture windows?
Well, yes, we had a balcony there before, a little, planar balcony with little French doors, but we worked on keeping those. We looked at, those are just a couple of, like 3 feet for the sill, and then 6'8". So we could set them up a little higher, but
That's
it is
these,
kind of a.
right.
It's those guys, yeah.
Okay.
So we did take in consideration of any kind of balconies or French doors and any kind of noise that might generate from this corner here.
Okay, so you have a fairly blank facade here that's most adjacent to this neighbor.
Right.
And her concerns about privacy. These windows, there may be some opportunity to look down into that rear yard. But you have you put a big tree here. There's a lot of landscape going on here. Let's talk about the views from this terrace and this terrace. Maybe that's looking at the landscape plan. So you have one tree here that would probably address most concerns about this balcony. Then along here you have a wood fence, 6-foot wood fence, with some stuff growing in front of it and on it, it looks like.
Yeah. I want to get some vines on it, and then we have that low growth here.
Okay. Is there room for additional larger trees here?
Yeah, we would be happy to work with the owner and being able to kind of create some better privacy with some landscaping or trees to
Address some of that? Okay, and then on this side, I don't really have a good sense of what's going on in this building or in here. Are there windows and things like that that would be in
Site plan
would be in
better
conflict?
place for- we can bring that into the next. These are windows actually right here. This is what we did previously, where we located windows in this property. That's another one. So I can bring in something like what those particular rooms are.
That'd be helpful,
possibly.
I think, for everybody, and to help.
Gives you a general idea of what it is.
And I think it goes both ways. The neighbors would be happy to see that, and I think your future tenants will be happy to have some privacy. So it cuts both ways. So just to clarify, there's an existing site wall down here.
Correct.
And it's 2-ish,
2 to 3 feet.
3 feet high.
So right, about 2.5, 3.
Right there at this corner here, I was there, I should have taken a picture, but it measures 30 inches in it, and it tapers up. And the whole property my property
slides down.
Slides down. And that's another reason with the civil engineering, why this, of course, with the views for sure, but that with the civil engineering, for bringing the water all around that way, that setup works.
Okay. And then we should probably go to that plan, wherever that was. Where was that plan? There it is. So then there's a small setback and then an additional wall that's coming up?
Well, that is kind of just this is conceptual, so we are planning on being just right on that, or maybe.
So you're going to add to the existing wall?
Basically it's a gravity wall that the civil engineer came up with.
Okay. So from your neighbor's side, she's going to have what was once a...
You have that picture that I gave you of the backyard? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I do, actually.
So what was once a 2 to 3 foot wall is now going to be a 6 foot-ish wall going all the way across.
No, we're not coming up that high.
It might be at this point, but it comes down at the same.
Grade here, almost 70, and you're up 75 and a half.
So 5.5 feet. 5-ish feet.
I do have a photo of that back.
Okay, yeah, that'd be helpful.
That might help a little bit.
That would help.
With some
Well,
reference.
I mean, it's kind of, this is the back of this property. It's the only thing we have at this point, but this is a view looking back at this line here. So it's not really giving you a sense of what's beyond there, but it drops off, and then this is down Lowe's.
Is this on is the hedge on your property or
her property?
I've got a great photo of this in my car if you want me to grab it. It's like looking
Looking
right
right
down.
down.
Okay.
I mean, I could run out there, it's right in front of the parking lot, but gives you a sense of, but it is raised up here, and we just really worked with, the whole idea with Andre was like, really, the pumping of this and all the mechanics of all this was like, how can we get this to gradually flow across here? So they're working everything, they did the best, and so that is a existing, you can see the different 2.5, maybe 3 here, and we're coming up 2 to 2.5 on top of that. What exists
You're
right now.
raising the grade in the back
Correct.
of the property in order to flow to the
Yes,
street.
to get everything to
Okay.
move to the street.
Okay.
And that was the whole reason for that exercise, is not to pump up,
Okay.
and
And
not
then
to drop down into that.
are you containing along this
Yeah,
property
there's
line?
a little,
Yeah, it's
Little
meant to
curve.
curve the water, bring it to that side of the property and flow and bring it out.
there is a little flow here too, as you can see coming around this side. So.
Minus some retention, I'm sure.
Okay. Those are my questions. Richard, do you want to start with some comments?
Yeah, I think the architecture is nice, and I feel that the north elevation needs some more ins and outs. But I'd like to address something bigger than that. I think that this project, and I don't know if it's our purview, but I think this is an example of the AUD not working, where we've got 3 units that, are above or clear, are almost 1,000 square feet and meeting 2 parking spaces. I mean, that's a significant. I used to live in a 900 square foot, and we definitely had 2 cars. And to take and pare the 4th unit way down to 315 is, I think, taking advantage of the AUD, and I think that when the environmental assessment is made and parking is addressed in that assessment, that that game that's being played here is examined. That's all I need to say on that.
Okay.
I
So
think
do you recall our discussion? I guess you weren't present for the discussion we had regarding parking and.
yeah, I know it
unit
isn't.
sizes.
I know it's not our purview. So, but I'm just ringing a bell for the environmental assessment folks to take a look at that. I think that a lot of the questions regarding the adjacencies of the neighborhood could be answered with, I think we need to see renderings of the street elevation. You had it previously on your previous project, where you have elevations of both side neighboring buildings accurately to scale. And I think that you need to have the side elevations with the buildings in front and the grades in front of those side elevations dotted heavily, so we can see the comparison between your building and the adjacent
I do
buildings.
show that, just that one side. I profile all that exactly to this elevation.
So you have that somewhere?
This right here.
Yeah, I guess.
This is the existing coming up. This is existing tile. This is that existing tower. This is existing. That came off of Winky's drawings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's existing. And this right here.
Oh,
It's a little
I think when with the north, I would like to see that with the elevations with those dotted in front of, like Winky's profile in front of the north elevation, and also conversely the neighbor to the south in front of the south elevation. And especially interested in seeing the a drawing extending to the property to the south, to the rear of the property also, those grade differentials. I'd like to see that in graphic form also. And along with those dotted graphics, I think, the photographs of the buildings to convince us of the privacy issues, those intimate, property to property photographs, so we can see understand the privacy issues. That's my comments.
Okay. Bob?
I'd like to start by saying the building that you're removing is probably the worst building on that block. So happy to see it go. Almost anything could be an improvement. And I like the architecture. I already mentioned the gable ends. I think those elevations need to be worked so that you don't have this big stark whiteness right there in here. Let's see. I think you need a lot more vertical landscaping along the south property line, the driveway. You really aren't providing anything with regard to privacy other than a 6-foot high fence. And you need something above that. You need some vertical landscaping. And that, it should be trees, shade your parking area. Not sure how much room you've got to work with regard to, how much of a tree planter you've got. I think this tree here is, if that's meant to be anything substantial, you may need to, give yourself a larger pocket there.
Pocket.
And I would say, maybe, are these 10 feet squares, more or less? 3/16?
8.5.
Okay. So, maybe you get a pocket here, a pocket here, a pocket here. Just get some canopy trees in there. Privacy for everybody. Better views, really. If you don't plant them too tall, then you're going to have views out your second-story windows toward the ocean without looking into your neighbor's property. The sweet shade tree that is shown in a couple of spots is a good tree, but it's going to get awfully tall and maybe really won't be in scale with the building over time. You might want to consider something that's going to be, 30 to 40 feet tall at the most. The sweet shades will get taller than that, and they're thin, and they're pretty inconsistent in form. So I would say only use those where you've got a narrow space where you need to, conform to the space with the tree itself.
Do you have a recommendation of a?
No.
No, okay.
You have a landscape architect. I think, I understand your desire for 12-foot square bedrooms, but I think one 12-foot square bedroom per unit is probably enough. And the secondary bedroom could be, substantially smaller, 20%, 25% smaller. And that'll, reduce the overall mass of the building. I know that I know that 4 units is acceptable, and I'm okay with that, but I think you need to try to make those units building mass as small as you can, and if that means you've got to reduce the size of 3 bedrooms, then I think you should do that.
2 bedrooms, they're 2 bedrooms.
Okay, but you've got three
units.
12-foot bedrooms and 3 12-foot bedrooms, all right? You have 6 bedrooms altogether, and you're making them all 12 feet square.
Yeah, I
Is
just
that
wanted
correct?
to clarify that. I didn't think I thought maybe you were saying 3-bedroom units.
No. I understand what you're doing.
Otherwise, I
Again,
get what
you know,
you're saying.
you've got basically 2 master bedrooms in each unit. And I think in the interest of, reducing it for essentially neighborhood compatibility and not just going overboard with the mass, a little bit could help. I don't know if you've got the room to do it along the south property line, but I think a CMU wall with plaster finish would be a lot more in keeping with the building style, and also would be a lot better with regard to noise. So, neighbors to the south, cars in that area, a more solid wall would be, a lot better. It's going to cost you a lot more money, but it'd be really nice for your neighbors. That's all.
Okay. Howard?
So I just want to go back to this civil drawing, and I'm looking at some numbers. And the building floor elevation on the east neighbor says 69.68, 70 feet. And then it says the top of the existing wall is 73.2 feet. And then it says the top of the new wall that you're building is 75.5 feet. So between 70 and 75.5, that's about a 5.5-foot wall between the two. So then your unit is on the finished floor is 76.4. So that's a foot higher than 75.5. So you're going to walk out onto a terrace that is essentially a 5-foot drop to your neighbor. And from that 76.4, your building rises 25 feet in the air. So between your building and your neighbor's building, that's a towering mass from her point of view. And so I think you may have to do some screening there and to keep people from falling over the edge. So there will be either an extension of the wall up at the property line, maybe a nice CMU wall with stucco finish to maintain the safety, to retain the soil and the other. So that will become part of the architecture. And then that wall may need to be addressed. For example, you have a gap between your neighbor's wall and your wall. And in that gap, which could be a number of feet or inches, you might plant something in there to screen the wall and make it less impactful. The other thing is that we were talking about that little elevation with that little 2-inch reveal, which in your roof is an entirely new, different roof. You've got a hipped roof, so that little offset is a different element architecturally. So I'm just wondering that you are creating a very tall mass there to enclose a stair. So when you step onto the landing of the stair, the ceiling is 20 feet up. So I'm wondering why we would need that corner, which is especially impactful to your neighbor, to be so big. And yet, architecturally, everything about in your George Washington Smith style and pursuit is great. I mean, I think if you would render all your elevations, maybe I think the comments were made to make 1 or 2 of the long elevations more interesting, and maybe to adjust up and down and reduce the room sizes or whatever to kind of give it a little more, tuck it in. But I do think this corner with the walls adding, and then the guardrails or whatever you have to have, and then the landscaping on top of that, and the building on top of that, that you might want to study that corner. And I agree with all of the other comments that have been made. But the architecture is in the right direction. It's really great.
Okay, yeah, I would, looking at that elevation myself and saying, gosh, there's got to be a way to cut this down a little bit and get at least some relief from this really tall facade right there. I'm going to agree with most of Howard's comments and Bob's comments, and I would move for an indefinite continuance.
Yeah.
And with the following comments, since this is comments only, that the style of the architecture, the board can support the general style of architecture and appreciates the detail and reference to George Washington Smith details. Board would like the architect to study the, what are we calling this? The rear.
I believe that is the east. That is the east rear, by the way.
This is the east elevation of the rear duplex.
Yeah.
Particularly at the corner condition to reduce the apparent height around the stair, as well as study the two windows on the second level to reduce possible privacy concerns with the rear neighbor. The board would like the architect to return with photos of the surrounding properties taken from the subject property to show what possible conflicts there are with neighboring windows and open yards or backyards, and to provide solutions for providing privacy to the neighboring parcels with either landscape or architectural choices to mitigate those issues. Let's see. I guess utilize hip roofs as much as possible to reduce the apparent mass of the building. Look for ways to reduce the mass of the second floor. What else? Provide site sections showing adjacent grades at neighboring buildings and how the proposed grading relates to the existing grade on site. Provide elevations with neighboring properties dashed, or outlines of neighboring structures dashed in.
Denser landscape screening along the south property line.
Provide additional or more dense landscape screening along the south property line in the form of canopy trees. Study using solid site walls in lieu of wood fencing. And then there were some comments about the front elevation. Right, it was the hip. Was that it? Okay. Anything else I'm missing? I adequately capture the Okay.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Second that? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's still a good project.
Nice.
Yep. Did we keep this, or do you,
You can keep the other two sets if you like, otherwise I'll recycle them.
you want this?
No, he can take those, otherwise I'll recycle
Cheers.
Take it.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Good night.
that will conclude our ABR meeting for the evening. Thank you very much.